Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales. Chapter 4640. To be honest, the divine dragon inheritance blood essence of a super Shenron was an unattainable dream for most students in the Dragon Martial Academy. After all, the ultimate goal of the Dragon Martial Academy was to nurture super Shenron subordinates for the Supreme Shenron. However, in reality, the 4 Dragon Martial Academies in the Dragon Martial continent might not produce a super Shenron for many years. It was not only because of the lack of cultivation resources, but also because there were not many Dragon Martial artists with the talent to become a super Shenron in the Dragon Martial continent. For example, Qin Xiaoye was already one of the top students in Donghuang Yongwu College. Not only was she famous, but she was also very strong. However, even she did not have the talent to become a super Shenron. She could only reach the 7th level of the Dragon Emperor. It could be seen that there were not many talents that could reach the level of a super Shenron in the 4 Dragon Martial Academies. For example, even Xiao Yuhua could not reach the level of a super Shenron after reaching the pinnacle of the Dragon Emperor. If she wanted to break through, she would have to put in 10 times the effort of others, and it might even require a lot of cultivation resources. In comparison, the higher the talent blood essence compatibility, the less cultivation resources needed to break through the level of the divine dragon inheritance blood essence. After reaching the bottleneck, every increase in the level of the divine dragon inheritance blood essence would require 4 to 5 times the cultivation resources. One could imagine how many cultivation resources Xiao Yuhua would need to break through from the pinnacle of the Dragon Emperor to the pinnacle of a super Shenron. It was difficult to estimate. For the upper echelons, it was a loss that outweighed the gains. Therefore, the kind of talent one possessed would determine the kind of cultivation resources one would obtain, which would also determine one's final status. The Dragon Martial artists of the Dragon Martial continent, as long as they reached the 5th layer of the Dragon Emperor, they would be qualified to go to the Dragon Martial continent for a year of training. The first thing they had to do was to test their innate talent and blood essence compatibility, which would determine their status. Kang Xinmu thought that he definitely did not have the qualifications to bring Xiao Bai to the 5 extremes mysterious ice holy ground. After all, they had not reached the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor. Of course, there might be exceptions. In any case, that kind of detection method was only available to the Supreme Sacred Land. As for what kind of resources were needed to detect innate talent compatibility, Kang Xinmu did not know. In any case, now that he was in the 5 extreme dark ice holy land, he could only listen to his superiors. As for the specifics, he didn't know. He was not worried about Xiao Bai. After all, Xiao Bai had a compatibility of 62. She could reach the 2nd level of the super mystical dragon. Even in the great world of the dragon gods, this was not bad. Don't think that the dragon god clan's great world was full of super Shenron and supreme Shenron. In fact, super Shenron was only a minority. In the dragon god clan's great world, they were also super geniuses that were 1 in 10,000. However, in the Dragon Martial continent, this ratio was even lower. It might be 1 in 100,000, or even 1 in a million. Xiao Bai could reach 62 points of synchronization. In the great world of dragon gods, she could be considered 1 in a million. But as for Kang Xinmu, he did not know what kind of talent he had. After all, he had the black dragon consciousness in his body. It was reasonable to say that no matter what level he reached, he would not face any bottlenecks. But he did not know the principle and method of detecting innate talent blood essence compatibility. Of course, he did not know what the other party's detection would be like. All of this could only be revealed when he went up there. He glanced at the sisters, Jiang Liuxue and Shi Yueying. These 3 girls were a little embarrassed to be by Kang Xinmu's side. The black dragon consciousness had already seen their talent. They were all around level 55 or 56. This was considered very good in the Dragon Martial continent, but in the great world of the dragon gods, it was really nothing. They could directly reach the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor and become the level of the Dragon Emperor's mentor. As for what happened after that, it would depend on their luck. Don't think that they did not have a chance to get up. As long as they were willing to work hard, their future was still promising. But compared with Ran, who had 72 points of synchronization, there was no way they could compare. Just like the Dragon Emperor of Great Liang, his innate talent blood essence compatibility was only level 53. Before the void crack appeared, he only had the 3rd level of the Dragon Emperor's inheritance blood essence. But recently, he had been fighting on the battlefield and had long reached the level of the Dragon Emperor's mentor. He was even ranked in the top 100 of the Dragon Emperor list. He was the pride of the Dragon Warriors of the Dragon Emperor Kingdom. He was constantly making contributions to obtain demon hunting points and seized that opportunity to rise directly. He was now at the 7th level of the Dragon Emperor, and his improvement speed was no slower than that of Kang Xinmu. But how much blood and sweat did he put in? No one knew that all the Dragon Warriors of the Dragon Kingdom of Great Liang regarded him as a hero and idol. This was because the Dragon Emperor of Great Liang worked too hard. His talent was mediocre, but his hard work allowed him to surpass many more talented existences than him. It was because he seized the opportunity and dared to fight and fight. You don't have to send me off. We'll be leaving first. Kang Xinmu brought the 3 girls to the East Emperor Matrix and then said goodbye to Qin Xiaoya and Zhu Wudi. A few people could be seen following them in the distance. They were Chu Yi, Su Qin, and Luo Han, who were now waving at Kang Xinmu and the others. Kang Xinmu nodded at them from afar and then left through the East Emperor Matrix with the 3 girls. He planned to teleport directly to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. In fact, it was more convenient to go to the Longwu Fortress. Unfortunately, the 3 girls were too weak now, and it was not convenient for them to go to the Longwu Fortress. Therefore, they could only go to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy first. As for the East Emperor points needed to activate the teleportation, Qin Xiaoya and Zhu Wudi helped pay together. Soon, the East Emperor Matrix was activated. Kang Xinmu and the 2 girls entered the white light and waited for it to teleport them to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. Soon, a familiar feeling came. Space travel. At this moment, Shi Yueying suddenly grabbed Kang Xinmu's arm, looking a little nervous. Kang Xinmu patted her shoulder and gestured for her not to worry. In the next moment, a white light flashed, and when they reappeared, a lush green scenery was reflected in their eyes. This scenery caused Kang Xinmu's expression to change slightly. This place was not Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. Where was this? Kang Xinmu looked around and realized that it was a barren green mountain. Then, there were the roars of wild beasts and the smell of blood. What is this place? Chapter 46-41. It was a seemingly barren green forest, and the roars of beasts could be heard constantly. It seemed like this was the territory of demonic beasts. However, Kang Xinmu did not sense any powerful aura of demonic beasts in the surroundings. It was obvious that this was not an important demonic beast territory. It was just a barren land. Kang Xinmu became very vigilant. Then, he brought Jiang Liuxue, Shi Yueying, and Shi Yutong to carefully observe the surroundings. Brother Jiang, what is this place? Shi Yutong looked around curiously. When Kang Xinmu said that he would bring them to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy, they naturally believed him. After all, Kang Xinmu had never lied to them. I don't know either. There seems to be something wrong with the East Imperial formation. Kang Xinmu's expression was somewhat solemn. He was constantly on guard against possible ambushes in the surroundings. However, after waiting for a long time, there was no aura in the surroundings. Jiang Liuxue, Shi Yueying, and Shi Yutong all had the inherited blood essence of the divine dragon. They were only one step away from the Dragon King. Originally, they were still quite far away. However, after coming to Donghuang Yangwu College, they had obtained a lot of cultivation resources. Hence, they were only one step away. To Kang Xinmu, it was no longer too difficult to raise their inherited blood essence to the Dragon King level. Suddenly, Kang Xinmu thought of something. There was a limit to the compatibility of these dragon martial artists with their blood essence. However, what would happen if they encountered a bottleneck and Kang Xinmu transferred the energy of the dragon mark to them? Would it be the same as them absorbing the cultivation resources of the dragon mark and consuming 4 to 5 times the amount to break through? Or would it be the same as when there were no bottlenecks? As long as Kang Xinmu transferred the energy of the dragon mark to them, they would be able to break through directly? This was a very important matter. One had to know that the people around Kang Xinmu all had different cultivation talents. Their talents and blood essence compatibility were also different. Right now, none of them had reached their limits and encountered a bottleneck. However, once they encountered a bottleneck, the gap between Kang Xinmu and them would rapidly widen. At that time, it was highly possible that when they were still at the 4th or 5th level of the Dragon Emperor, Kang Xinmu would already be a super divine dragon, reaching the level of Zhou Xiaofan and Yuya Ji. It was even possible that when Kang Xinmu reached the level of a supreme divine dragon, his friends would still be at the level of the Dragon Emperor. That was very unbearable. One had to know that Jiang Shenwu had never been a fickle person. He did not wish for his friends to drift further and further away from him because he was very clear about the power of unity. It was difficult for Kang Xinmu to improve so much on the battlefield of the 9 races. After all, his attack ability was not strong. On the battlefield of the 9 races, he relied on the power of the Black Hidden Dragon Stone to hide and launch sneak attacks. Most of the time, it was Xiao Yuhua and the others who attacked. As long as they attacked together, as long as the opponent was not too strong, they would basically be killed instantly. Kang Xinmu didn't even need to lift a finger to kill them. In fact, even if Kang Xinmu wanted to attack, it would be useless. Previously, he hadn't cultivated the 9th level of the Roaring Dragon Explosion, so his instantaneous lethality was really not comparable to Xiao Yuhua and the others. Even if Kang Xinmu cultivated the 9th level of the Roaring Dragon Explosion to the 2nd level, his explosive power was about the same as Xiao Yuhua and the others. If he wanted to surpass them, he had to cultivate the 9th level of the Roaring Dragon Explosion to a higher level. And that would require time. The key was that what Kang Xinmu lacked now was time. It was a rare opportunity. Whether it was the invasion of the Void Beasts or the battlefield of the 9 races, the time that the students of the Dragon Martial Academy had was limited. If Kang Xinmu wanted to cultivate the dragon attack technique, he might not even have the chance to do so now. Therefore, friends were very important to Kang Xinmu. If he didn't have the help of his friends this time, he wouldn't have been able to improve so much. Of course, it was still unknown whether the energy of the fairy dragon mark could help them break through their bottlenecks. Therefore, there was no need to think too much about it now. He could only wait for one of his friends to break through their bottlenecks before Kang Xinmu could try it. Now, he stayed in this barren green mountain with the 3 girls and didn't run around. This was because Kang Xinmu didn't know where he was. Even with the instant magic ring, he didn't know which direction he should go to reach Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. In order to prevent danger from coming, he brought the 3 girls and descended into the dense forest below. In this barren green mountain, there was a dense forest with uneven terrain. It was rather complicated. They hid in the forest and didn't sense the presence of any powerful demonic beasts in the surroundings. Although this area was dense with vegetation, it seemed to lack vitality. Kang Xinmu discovered that the green forest was a type of tree. It was a tree with a very tenacious life force. It was called the 10,000 wood. It was said that this kind of tree could survive in extreme environments and could even live up to 10,000 years. However, the 10,000 wood couldn't grow tall or big. Even if it lived for thousands or tens of thousands of years, it would still be a small tree. Now, Kang Xinmu and the others were hiding in a patch of 10,000 wood. Each of the 10,000 wood was only about 10 zhang tall. If they transformed into dragon martial artists, it would be impossible for them to hide in the trees. This piece of land seems to be scorched. Kang Xinmu soon discovered that the leaves under his feet were black and red scorched land. It was as if a terrifying war had erupted in this area, or a large-scale fire had occurred. A supreme-level expert has died in this place. At this moment, the consciousness of the demonic god ancestor was transmitted to Kang Xinmu's mind. He looked solemn. This scorched land was left behind by a supreme-level expert with the fire attribute. Therefore, many plants can't survive here. Only the 10,000 wood can. Moreover, the demonic beasts that live here feed on the 10,000 wood. The leaves and roots of the 10,000 wood are all very tenacious. Many demonic beasts can't eat them, so there are only a few of them. As such, there won't be any strong demonic beasts in this forest. Only the demonic beasts that feed on the 10,000 wood will reproduce in large numbers in an environment where there are no natural enemies. Kang Xinmu didn't expect this scorched land of the 10,000 wood to be left behind after the death of a supreme-level expert with the fire attribute. This meant that there was a high chance that the corpse of an unparalleled powerhouse was buried under this place. As for what race it was, no one knew. In short, the death of a supreme-level expert was a big deal. It should be known that the dragon god world was facing a great crisis because of the death of two supreme-level dragon martial artists. This was the cause of the entire crisis. Therefore, the corpse of a supreme-level expert was extremely rare. For Kang Xinmu, he wanted to look for it, but the most important question now was why was he teleported to this scorched land of the 10,000 wood through the East Emperor Formation? Soon, he heard the sound of the wind whistling over his head, followed by the pressure of a dragon martial artist descending from above. Chapter 46-42. They were two dragon warriors. To be precise, they were two dragon emperor mentors. They were the two dragon emperor mentors who had been behind Lord Long and had been preventing Kang Xinmu from taking the three girls away. They were both middle-aged men and had inherited the blood essence of the divine dragon from the 6th level of the dragon emperor. At this moment, one of them had transformed into a fire dragon and the other into an ice dragon. They appeared in the sky above the scorched wood forest and seemed to be patrolling around, searching for something. Obviously, they were looking for someone, and they were looking for Kang Xinmu and the three girls. Why were they looking for Kang Xinmu? It was obvious that they wanted to kill Kang Xinmu. Xiaofan could not do such a thing himself, but he could not sit back and watch any more dragon warriors leave Donghuang Yangwu College and join Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. What should they do with Kang Xinmu just now? Let Kang Xinmu take them away first, and then kill all four of them secretly. This was the best way to deal with it. Anyway, the East Emperor Formation was controlled by Xiaofan, so he could decide where he wanted to send people. That was why Kang Xinmu had brought the three girls to this scorched wood forest. This place was the site of the ruins of the primordial era, and the things in the ruins had long been dug out, so no one had come to this place in the past hundreds of years. In this forest, besides the 10,000-year wood forest, there were only some small monsters that fed on 10,000-year wood. Even dragon warriors who wanted to train would not come to this place. Therefore, this place was the most sparsely populated, and it was very secretive. In fact, if Kang Xinmu wanted to run away, he would have done so with the instant magic ring. The key was that Kang Xinmu did not know where this place was. Without a sense of direction, he did not dare to run around with the instant magic ring. What if he ran into a dangerous place? That was why he did not take action for the time being. Unexpectedly, he saw the two Dragon Emperor mentors gliding across the sky, as if they were searching for the four of them. They wanted to kill them. Kang Xinmu's eyes flickered sharply. He knew that the other party still did not know where he was, so next, should he launch a sneak attack? You guys stay here. I'll go out and deal with them. Kang Xinmu said to the three women. If the three women were to be with him, it would definitely give him a headache. After all, he would have to split his attention to protect the three women. If he was alone, he would have nothing to fear. In fact, with his current strength, he was not afraid of the two Dragon Emperor mentors in front of him at all in this incomparably hidden place. Even if they were powerhouses on the 6th level of the Dragon Emperor, Kang Xinmu was already on the 3rd level of the Dragon Emperor. Moreover, there was a gap between Kang Xinmu and the other party in terms of cultivation level. The other party was a powerful existence on the 9th level of the Samsara realm. But for Kang Xinmu, this gap could be made up for with his devouring power. Secondly, he could make up for it with all the dragon weapons, demonic weapons, and phantom weapons he had on him. Thirdly, he had once condensed Nirvana power when he was in the Nirvana realm, so his devouring power was several levels stronger than that of ordinary dragon martial artists. Therefore, for Kang Xinmu, these two opponents on the 6th level of the Dragon Emperor realm were not invincible. Of course, it was still rather difficult for him to defeat both of them at the same time. Therefore, Kang Xinmu had to first separate them. How to separate them? It was very difficult. After all, it was not like when he had met the man and woman on the battlefield of the Fu Shui tribe. They had separated on their own, giving Kang Xinmu and the others a chance. Now, these two Dragon Emperor mentors were here to find someone, and that person was him, Kang Xinmu. It was not easy to separate them. Let's go to the underground relic. I feel that there are some good things in the underground relic. At this moment, the demon god ancestor said to Kang Xinmu anxiously, that thing should be very useful to you. Old black dragon, don't you think so? Let's go to the underground relic. Isn't it just a supreme fallen relic? With me and the old black dragon's guidance, you won't be in any danger. Then can I bring the three of them along? Kang Xinmu asked. Of course you can. Let's go, let's go. Let's go in the direction of the mountain behind you. You can use that instant dragon martial technique of yours and teleport 15 kilometers away. Those two Dragon Emperor mentors shouldn't be able to catch up to you. Even if they catch up, they will only die if they follow you into the relic. Hehe, it's impossible to activate the power of inheritance in the Supreme Relic. This fallen Supreme Powerhouse was pretty good to leave behind such a sealed inheritance relic. In the words of the Dragon Martial Continent, in this Supreme Relic, dragon martial artists could not transform into dragons and could only use their own strength. In that case, they could only use about 30% of their full strength. However, in the entire world, this was not just a restriction that prevented dragon martial artists from transforming into dragons. In this Supreme Relic, apart from dragon martial artists who could not transform into dragons, there were also powerhouses of other races who could not activate their own inheritance. For example, cultivators of the Fu Shui tribe could not condense the water god Shadow, and cultivators of the Void Human tribe could not condense the Void god Totem. All the power of inheritance was the same. They were sealed in the Supreme Relic and could not be activated. There are many such relics in the Chaos battlefield, and they are even more mysterious and dangerous. Let's explore this Supreme Relic today. In the future, when you go to the relic of the Chaos battlefield, you will be mentally prepared. As for those two Dragon Emperor mentors, they will simply be courting death if they follow us, said the demon god ancestor. To him, the two Dragon Emperors were just like ants. If it wasn't for the fact that Jiang Shenwu wasn't strong enough to defeat the two of them, he wouldn't have cared about them at all. Now, he had arranged for them to die, which was really letting them off easy. To be able to die under the arrangement of my demon god ancestor, it is the honor of the two Dragon Emperor mentors. Alright, in that case, let's go to the Supreme Relic. Kang Xinmu nodded. When the two Dragon Emperor mentors flew over his head, Kong Shinmu suddenly transformed into a black dragon and flew out of the vast 10,000-year-old forest. He let the three women grab his black dragon scales on his back, and then, before the Dragon Emperor mentors in the distance could react, he used the wind shadow flowing cloud flash. The distance of 15 miles was covered in the blink of an eye. Kong Shinmu brought the three women in his black dragon body and directly shuttled away. That kid ran away. Chase after him. This kid is really treacherous. Fortunately, we have the tracking needles given by the Dean. The two Dragon Emperor mentors could confirm that Kong Shinmu and the others were hiding in this 10,000-year-old forest. They originally planned to wander around, but they did not expect Kong Shinmu to appear and fly away. At that moment, the tracking needles in their hands aimed at Kong Shinmu's position and directly pierced into his divine dragon body. This tracking needle came from Xiaofan. Kong Shinmu naturally could not remove it now, but Kong Shinmu was not worried about this. If he had the ability to chase after him, why not come to the Supreme Relic? Chapter 46-43. Kong Shinmu directly used the wind shadow flowing cloud flash with the three women, traversing a distance of more than 10 kilometers and arriving at the entrance of the Supreme Remnant. The entire 10,000-year wood forest, spanning several thousand kilometers, was the place where the Supreme Expert had perished. The land was scorched, and there were almost no living creatures living here. The entrance to the Supreme Remnant was a huge sinkhole, the scorched earth sinkhole. There wasn't even a single 10,000-year wood forest in the sinkhole, and the surroundings were filled with dense spiritual energy. However, this spiritual energy contained very dense fire poison. If one were to absorb this spiritual energy, they would be poisoned by fire poison left behind by a Supreme Expert. If one didn't have enough strength, they would most likely die. Previously, when the Martial Dragon Continent's martial artists had come to explore the scorched earth sinkhole, they had all held their breath, not daring to absorb the fire-poisoned spiritual energy. But Kong Shinmu didn't need to do so. The Black Dragon's consciousness told him that as long as he used his devouring power, not only would he be able to avoid the fire-poisoned spiritual energy's corrosion, but he could also absorb it for his own use, strengthening his resistance to the fire-poisoned spiritual energy. This was undoubtedly good news for Kong Shinmu. If it was in the outside world, he wouldn't be able to deal with the two Dragon Emperor instructors at the same time. But in the scorched earth sinkhole, he could use the favorable terrain to defeat them. Because in the scorched earth sinkhole, under the cover of such dense fire-poisoned spiritual energy, they didn't dare to fight with their full strength. If they used their full strength and accidentally absorbed the fire-poisoned spiritual energy, it would be extremely harmful to their bodies. But not only was Kong Shinmu unafraid of the fire-poisoned spiritual energy, he could even devour it and use it as his own sharp weapon. The only ones who were suffering were Jiang Liuxue and the other two women. They couldn't even hold their breath. In this scorched earth sinkhole, it was very easy for them to suddenly die. This was because their cultivation level and the essence blood of the divine dragon inheritance were too low. The fire-poisoned spirit qi could completely penetrate their bodies, and then directly corrode into their bodies, injuring them. If they were just passing by, Kong Shinmu could help them resist the fiery poisonous spiritual energy around them, but if they were to fight, Kong Shinmu wouldn't be able to look after them. So, Kong Shinmu directly passed through the fiery poisonous sinkhole and arrived at the center of the sinkhole, where there was a cave entrance. This cave entrance was the entrance to the Supreme Ruins. Unparalleled ruins, they were called ruins, but in reality, there were no buildings inside. This was just a place where a Supreme Expert fell, and there was great power hidden within. If one were to enter the underground from that hole, they would see the bones of many dragon warriors. As for the skeleton of the Supreme Warrior, no one had seen it before. Even the Super Dragon Warriors had come to explore, but unfortunately, they could not pass the final checkpoint and step into the innermost part. So now, the demon god ancestor directly told Kang Shinmu that if he could obtain the corpse of that supreme expert, it would be very helpful to him. Judging from the aura, this fallen supreme master is most likely from the demon god clan. The demon god ancestor sighed. This fiery poisonous spiritual energy is more like an old friend of mine, the myriad ghost fire demon god. So this supreme expert should have cultivated the demon god's bloodline of the myriad ghost fire demon god. The one who had fallen here was not the myriad ghost fire demon god himself, but someone who had obtained the myriad ghost fire demon god's bloodline, so they had the same nature of power. Who would have thought that the one who had fallen here was actually from the demon god race? Kang Shinmu shook his head and didn't think too much about it. He transformed into a dragon and flew, using his devouring power to protect the three girls, and then brought them to the entrance of the ruins. There was a layer of protective barrier at the entrance of the cave, isolating the fiery poisonous spiritual energy from the outside and preventing it from entering the cave. This was the preparation made when they explored the unparalleled ruins before. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to move at all underground. After blocking the fiery poisonous spiritual energy, they could step into the cave to search for the treasures left in the ruins. Unfortunately, no one had ever succeeded. Anything that could be taken away from the periphery of the ruins had, of course, been taken away. But where was the most precious place in this place where the supreme expert had fallen? Naturally, it was where the corpse of the supreme expert was. No one knew what precious things the supreme expert had brought with him. Unfortunately, no one had been able to find the corpse of the supreme expert and obtain those treasures. This time, Kang Shinmu's goal was those treasures, the treasures of the supreme expert from the demon god race. It was unknown how many years ago this expert had died here, but at that time, the Dragon Martial Continent was probably not the territory of the dragon god race. The ownership of these small worlds was always changing, and it all depended on which race was stronger. The corpse of the supreme expert of the demon god race was extremely tempting to Kang Shinmu. After all, he had also cultivated the inheritance of the demon god race and possessed the inheritance blood essence of a 16-winged heavenly demon god. As long as he was willing, the blood essence in his body could be directly transformed from the inheritance blood essence of the dragon god race into the inheritance blood essence of a 16-winged heavenly demon god. This was because he had the consciousness of the black dragon and the ancestor of the demon god race in his body. Their inheritance blood essence could be transformed at will in Kang Shinmu's body. Of course, like the auxiliary inheritance he cultivated, the inheritance of the power of the void, the power of the inheritance could not be transformed at will. Instead, it was stored in a special, devouring space. This space was condensed by endless devouring power, and the auxiliary inheritance power he cultivated was all in the devouring space. That was why it was twice as difficult for him to cultivate the auxiliary inheritance compared to others. Moreover, if he wanted to cultivate the next auxiliary inheritance, he would have to open another devouring space. This way, it would be even more difficult for him to cultivate, because the power of the inheritance had to be transformed before he could use and cultivate it. Back to business. Kang Shinmu brought the three women to the entrance of the supreme ruins and placed them inside. Then, he planned to return and deal with the two Dragon Emperor mentors who had caught up. The entrance of the cave was extremely wide. Even the 10,000-foot-long body of the Dragon Emperor could fly in 3 or 4 abreast. Therefore, the three women were like ants at the entrance of the cave. They stood on the ground, separated by the protective barrier that shielded them from the fire-poison spirit chi, and watched as Kang Shinmu turned and left. They did not say much, knowing that Kang Shinmu was about to go and deal with strong enemies. The two Dragon Emperor mentors. Those were Dragon Emperor mentors. Could Kang Shinmu really defeat them? The difficulty was too great. But ever since Kang Shinmu had been in the Jiang clan, he had constantly created miracles, repeatedly defeating opponents that he could not defeat. Jiang Liuxue and the other two girls stood at the entrance of the cave, gazing out into the distance. The spreading fire-poison spiritual energy quickly submerged Jiang Shenwu's black dragon body. Not long after, the furious roar of a divine dragon rang out from within the scorched earth. Kang Shenmu, you can do it. Chapter 46-44. Kang Shenmu flew into the scorched earth sinkhole and was once again enveloped by the fire-poison spiritual qi. His devouring power constantly devoured the surrounding fire-poison spiritual qi, and when it reached his body, it was all for his use. The fire-poison spiritual qi was stored in his devouring space. The devouring space in his body was a special space opened up by his devouring power, but it could not store other items and could only store power. All the power he devoured was temporarily stored in the devouring space. Back and forth, Kang Shenmu had already devoured a lot of fire-poison spiritual qi, but compared to the fire-poison spiritual qi in the entire scorched earth sinkhole, it was just a drop in the bucket. His black dragon body flew continuously in the scorched earth sinkhole's fire-poison spiritual qi, and very soon, he sensed two powerful existences appearing above the sinkhole. They're here. Kang Shenmu immediately roared angrily. He did not avoid the other party at all, and wanted to provoke a battle, to lure them down to kill him. He knew that the other party's goal was to kill him, so how could they resist the temptation now that he was in the scorched earth sinkhole? Although the other party's battle strength would be limited by the fire-poison spiritual qi coming down to the scorched earth sinkhole, the two Dragon Emperor mentors believed that Kang Shenmu's strength would definitely be limited in the scorched earth sinkhole. Moreover, Kang Shenmu still had to take care of the three girls, and they felt that Kang Shenmu did not even know the danger of the fire-poison spiritual qi. After all, Kang Shenmu had definitely never seen such a place in his life, nor had he heard of a scorched earth sinkhole filled with fire-poison spiritual qi. But what they did not know was that Kang Shenmu's sea of consciousness contained the demon god ancestor and the black dragon's consciousness. Now, the black dragon's consciousness was willing to communicate with them. Although it was not much, it was still much more frequent than before. The main thing was that the demon god ancestor would tell Kang Shenmu everything no matter what situation he encountered. Was there anything in this world that the demon god ancestor did not know? There was, but there was too little. Therefore, the moment Kang Shenmu arrived at the fire-poisoned sinkhole, he already knew its characteristics. Now that Kang Shenmu roared, it also announced that he was in the fire-poisoned sinkhole, and pretended to be in pain, as if he was being corroded by the fire poison. This made the two Dragon Emperor mentors overjoyed, and they directly dove into the fiery spiritual qi of the scorched earth sinkhole. This fire-poisoned spiritual energy was like a sea of flames. Although it was not a real flame, nor was it a real sea, the rising and falling fire-red spiritual energy mist still gave off a feeling of turbulent waves. The two Dragon Emperor mentors rushed into the sea of fire-poisonous spiritual energy. They immediately held their breaths and focused, releasing all their defensive powers to defend their surroundings. 9th Stage Extreme Dao Dragon Explosion. Two dark dragon breaths exploded in front of them. This caught the two Dragon Emperor mentors off guard, but when they flew into the sea of flames, they were already prepared to defend. At this time, they just roared casually, and a defensive power erupted, blocking Kang Shenmu's two dark dragon breaths. These two dark dragon breaths were not able to hurt the two Dragon Emperor mentors, but the surrounding fire-poison spiritual energy was dispersed by these two dark dragon breaths, and suddenly a vast area was cleared. The two Dragon Emperor mentors looked forward, but they did not see Kang Shenmu's black dragon body. The entire fire-poison spiritual energy seemed to have quietened down, and Kang Shenmu seemed to have disappeared. He used the wind shadow flowing cloud flash to change his position, making it difficult for the other party to grasp his position each time. The constant sneak attacks continuously consumed the energy in the other party's body. The other party wanted to directly find Kang Shenmu's position and directly kill Kang Shenmu. However, every time they wanted to rush to the place where Kang Shinmu's attack aura was condensed, they found that Kang Shinmu had already left that place, and there was the power of space around him. Clearly, Kang Shinmu had used that space-traveling dragon martial technique to escape in advance. This made them unable to believe it. This fellow actually has such a high level of comprehension of the power of space? This kind of space-traveling dragon martial technique can actually be used consecutively. This fellow's talent is too heaven-defying. That's Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy's Wind Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash. I'm afraid he has already cultivated it to the peak of the heaven stage. For others to cultivate this technique to the peak of the heaven stage, they would at least need to be at the 7th or 8th stage of the Dragon Emperor. This fellow is only at the 3rd stage of the Dragon Emperor. We actually can't take him down. This is too embarrassing. The faces of the two Dragon Emperor mentors turned somewhat unsightly. Unfortunately, what they did not know was that Kang Shinmu's Wind Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash had not been cultivated to the peak of the heaven stage, but had only reached the dragon stage. Of course, because Kang Shinmu had devoured the comprehension of the Wind Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash, his Wind Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash was much more powerful than the others. Chapter 46-45. Originally, Kang Shinmu's Wind Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash had been stuck at the Dragon Realm for some time. But now, he was constantly using this move in a nervous state. Coupled with the fact that he had already absorbed the insights from the Extreme Saint stage Sun Shadow Flowing Sunglow, his Sun Shadow Flowing Sunglow was finally showing signs of improvement. Wind Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash, Breakthrough. Peak Heaven Realm. Now, I can use the Wind Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash several times in every breath, and I can control the void at will. This feeling is really amazing. Kang Shinmu was somewhat amazed. Originally, he could only use the Wind Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash once in every breath, but now, as long as he wanted to, he could use it several times in every breath. It was worth mentioning that although the Wind Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash was a dragon martial skill that could shuttle through the void, although it was very useful in battle, it consumed a lot of energy. However, Kang Shinmu had the power of devouring, so would he be afraid of energy consumption? He could casually devour some of the surrounding energy to make up for his energy consumption. Whether it was the defensive power of the two Dragon Emperor mentors, or the dense fire poisonous spiritual chi in the surroundings, Kang Shinmu could devour them all, transforming them into the purest innate energy, and then he could continue to use the Wind Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash. Originally, if these two Dragon Emperor mentors cooperated well, and could find Kang Shinmu's position, there might be a way to intercept Kang Shinmu, and directly defeat Kang Shinmu. But now, it was impossible. If Kang Shinmu wanted to escape, he could escape immediately, and he could even appear in several places at the same time. This was the charm of the Wind Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash. Of course, just the Peak Heaven Realm Wind Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash alone could not reach this level. The most important thing was that Kang Shinmu had devoured the Wind Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash's comprehension from the Extreme Saint Realm. These insights allowed Kang Shinmu's Wind Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash to directly advance towards the Extreme Saint Realm after reaching the Peak Heaven Realm. He didn't even need the Rising Dragon Marrow, because he had already comprehended enough. Linghu Dai's comprehension of the Zunshadowy Flowing Sunset Flash was not something that just anyone could obtain. Other than Kang Shinmu's devouring power, even if Linghu Dai wanted to tell others about her comprehension, they would not be able to accept it. Only the devouring power could do that. Now that I've reached the pinnacle of the Heaven Realm, my Wind Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash has begun to advance towards the Saint Realm, or even the Extreme Saint Realm. Amazing! Kang Shinmu could not help but sigh at the power of the devouring power. As he thought of this, he could not help but have an idea. Recently, he had devoured quite a lot of power, especially from Su Sun Luo of the Void Human tribe. That fellow's black hole of nothingness and Void God's judgment were both extremely powerful holy void martial skills. Recently, Kang Shinmu had been studying the inheritance of the void force. He had a better understanding of the two holy void techniques and could even use them now. Of course, his void inheritance had only reached king level 8. If he were to use these two holy void skills, it would not be that powerful. Unless his void inheritance could reach royal level, it would not be that powerful. It was equivalent to the Dragon King's level 8 void force inheritance. If he were to use the most powerful holy void technique in combination with the most powerful spectral weapon, it would still be possible to deal with an ordinary opponent, such as Lord Long. However, it would not be so easy to deal with these two Dragon Emperor mentors. However, Kang Shinmu was not in a hurry. He just wanted to use this opportunity to try it out. Immediately after, he did what he thought of. After all, these two Dragon Emperor mentors would not be able to leave alive. He could test out the explosive power of his Void Force inheritance. Void God Totem, Condense. Kang Shinmu immediately removed his divine dragon form in this fiery poisonous spiritual energy. Then, a cylindrical Void God Totem image condensed behind him. This Void God Totem image enveloped his body. It was the Void Human Tribe's inheritance. Kang Shinmu's Void God Totem was the same inheritance as Su Senluo. After all, Kang Shinmu had first devoured Su Senluo's Void Force inheritance. Therefore, it was the same inheritance as them. This Void God Totem was called Clear Sky Virtual Luo. It was the name of a legendary Void God. This Clear Sky Virtual Luo was of an extremely high grade. It was equivalent to the Demon God Tribe's 16-winged heavenly demon god's inheritance. As for Clear Sky Virtual Luo himself, the demon god ancestor said that he had seen him before. However, he did not know much about him. After all, there were countless experts in this world. The demon god ancestor knew that the Clear Sky Virtual Luo's inheritance was considered one of the top inheritances among the Void Human Tribe. When the Clear Sky Virtual Luo totem appeared on Kang Shinmu's body and enveloped him, the surrounding fiery poisonous spiritual energy retreated. It could be understood that this Clear Sky Virtual Luo totem was like Kang Shinmu's divine dragon form. It looked like an image, but in reality, it was an extremely condensed void force. The ethereal energy dispersed the fiery poisoned spiritual energy. Waves of void force rippled outwards. As the fiery poisonous spiritual energy retreated, an empty domain appeared around Kang Shinmu. At this moment, the two Dragon Emperor mentors seemed to have seen the totem image of Haotian Virtual Luo through their own defensive barrier and the indistinct fiery poisonous spiritual qi. They were instantly shocked and confused. What was going on? Did they sense the aura of the Void Human Tribe? How was that possible? This was the Dragon Martial Continent. Could it be that the Dragon Martial Continent had been invaded by the Void Human Tribe? Before they could react, Kang Shinmu's attack was like a torrential downpour. Heavenly Illusionary Disc. Void God's Judgment. A wave of spatial distortion instantly condensed at Jiang Shenwu's location before explosively spreading out in all directions. The Heavenly Illusionary Disc was a top-notch heaven-level void weapon. The void force on it continued to revolve, emitting an extremely strong void force wave that enhanced Kang Shinmu's body. This increased the power of Kang Shinmu's Holy Void technique by at least 3 times. This was despite the fact that Kang Shinmu was not compatible with the Heavenly Illusionary Disc. If they were compatible, it would not be a problem for him to unleash 5 or 6 times the power. With the support of the Heavenly Oasis Disc, Jiang Shenwu's judgment of the Void God erupted with unparalleled power. Waves of fiery poisonous spiritual energy were repelled by the distorting power of the Void God's judgment of the Void God, scattering into the surroundings. The distorted space extended towards the two Dragon Emperor instructors and instantly enveloped them, including their defensive barrier. Bang! The defensive barrier condensed by the two Dragon Emperor instructors could not withstand the spatial distortion and started to distort as well. Then, their divine dragon bodies started to distort along with the spatial distortion. If they could not withstand this power, their divine dragon bodies would completely collapse in the spatial distortion. However, the grade of Kang Shinmu's void force inheritance was still too low. Chapter 46-46. Although the two Dragon Emperor mentors from Donghuang Yangu College had reached the 6th level of the Dragon Emperor's inheritance, their comprehension of the power of space was very shallow. This was because the power of the void was the most difficult power to comprehend in the world. Of course, this was the case with the power of time. The power of time was not something that people at their level could come into contact with. Hence, the power of the void was the most difficult power to grasp. Everyone had some understanding of this power, but how much they could comprehend depended on how much hard work they put into it. It also depended on how talented they were in the comprehension of the power of the void. Kang Shinmu relied on the power of devouring. Even though he did not have much talent, he could still grasp a certain level of the power of the void many times faster than others. Now, the judgment of the void god had reached a relatively high level. Of course, if the judgment of the void god had been personally executed by Su Sanluo, these two Dragon Emperor mentors would not have been able to resist it at all. However, the judgment of the void god that Kang Shinmu had executed now was a far cry from Su Sanluo's. Although its power was frightening, it was not enough to kill the two Dragon Emperor mentors in an instant. At this moment, the judgment of the void god burst out with a distorted space, completely enveloping the two Dragon Emperor mentors. Then, they each executed their strongest defensive and offensive techniques, directly exploding outwards. The two Dragon Emperor mentors were a little shocked. Through the distorted space, they could see the entire distorted totem of Su Sanluo's void god appearing in front of them. The body that was enveloped by the void god totem was impressively Kang Shinmu's body. Kang Shinmu cultivated the power of the void? How was this possible? How could one person cultivate two different inherited powers? Moreover, Kang Shinmu's cultivation of the power of the void was an act of betrayal to the dragon gods. If this was exposed, even the supreme divine dragon would sentence him to death. This situation shocked the two Dragon Emperor mentors. Kang Shinmu's secret had been exposed and discovered by them. Didn't that mean that Kang Shinmu had no intention of letting them leave alive? After they realized this, all kinds of powerful forces burst out and rushed out. After unleashing 3 or 4 attacks and defensive dragon martial techniques, the two of them finally tore apart the distorted space created by the void god's judgment. Their entire divine dragon body jumped out from the distorted space. They felt as if their divine dragon bodies were being twisted and torn apart, making them feel as if the world was surreal. Even now, when they looked at the normal world, it seemed a little distorted. Kang Shinmu, die. The two of them exchanged glances and immediately launched their attacks at Kang Shinmu. The two of them had extremely powerful dragon martial techniques. They had cultivated high-level dragon martial techniques and had reached the saint level. The power they unleashed was much stronger than that of Xiao Yuhua and Xiao Bai. Even the all-out attack of Xiao Yuhua and the other three could not compare to the power of one of the two. But now, these two did not really want to kill Kang Shinmu. They could feel Kang Shinmu's killing intent. Therefore, they only needed to escape from this place. As long as they could leave this place alive and spread the news that Kang Shinmu cultivated the power of the void, Kang Shinmu would definitely die. Emperor Shi Dragon Martial Arts Academy's principal Yu Yaji, and even the Supreme Emperor Shi Divine Dragon could not protect Kang Shinmu. Therefore, they only wanted to escape for their lives, lest they were killed by Jiang Shenwu's crafty schemes. Therefore, their attacks against Jiang Shenwu were just a smokescreen. Although they looked powerful, their destructive power was actually not too strong. After they unleashed 2 attacks, Kang Shinmu raised his hand to activate the Heavenly Oasis Heavenly Disk and unleashed the Black Hole of Nothingness. The power of the Black Hole of Nothingness condensed into a black sphere and swallowed all the attacks. Then, it buried it in the endless void crack. The Black Hole of Nothingness opened a small void crack and could swallow all attacks. It was a defensive wholly illusionary skill, but at the same time, it could also be used for attacks. If it was cultivated to a higher level, the Black Hole of Nothingness could even swallow the opponent directly, unlike now, which could only swallow the opponent's attack power. The Black Hole of Nothingness condensed and swallowed the attacks of the two Dragon Emperor mentors. Then, Kang Shinmu laughed coldly when he saw the two of them turning around to escape. The two of them had fallen into his trap. Under normal circumstances, it would be rather difficult for Kang Shinmu to kill them. Although their power was constantly being consumed in the poisonous fire spiritual influence, it was not easy to exhaust the power in their bodies. Moreover, when they felt that their power had been exhausted, they could choose to escape. At that time, even if Kang Shinmu chased after them, he might not be able to defeat the two of them. However, now that they had seen Kang Shinmu's inheritance of virtual power and the empty god totem that Kang Shinmu had condensed, they naturally knew the crimes that Kang Shinmu had committed. To the dragon gods, cultivating other inheritances was naturally a big crime. Once discovered, they would definitely be killed. How could they miss such an opportunity? The two Dragon Emperor mentors were very cautious in their actions. After seeing Kang Shinmu's secret, they did not intend to continue staying in this scorched sinkhole that was full of poisonous fire spiritual influence to fight against Kang Shinmu. There was no need for them to do so. What if Kang Shinmu had some tricks up his sleeves to kill them? In reality, Kang Shinmu did not have any tricks up his sleeves. On the contrary, their speculations about Kang Shinmu made them a little flustered. They had always thought that Kang Shinmu had a way to kill them, so they were in a hurry to escape. And this was right into Kang Shinmu's trap. It was precisely because the other party was so flustered that Kang Shinmu had the opportunity to take advantage of it. Sky Imprisoning Demon Pearl. Void-tearing Void Demon Blade. Kang Shinmu directly unleashed these two top-notch desolate god demonic weapons from the demon god tribe. At this moment, the bloodline in his body had directly changed to the bloodline of the demon god tribe. He had already cultivated the bloodline of the 16-winged heavenly demon god to the 9th tier of the king stage. Most importantly, there was the aura of the demon god ancestor in it. This was Kang Shinmu's real trump card. The sky-imprisoning demon pearl suddenly appeared. Those black pearls formed a sphere that enveloped one of the Dragon Emperor mentors and imprisoned him. On the other hand, the void-ripping void magic blade condensed the bloodline and aura of the demon god ancestor, unleashing an incomparably terrifying power. In the next moment, countless blades made of demonic aura blasted out, raining down on the other Dragon Emperor mentor like a black rainstorm. Such an attack, if the opponent was in a direct confrontation, would definitely be able to withstand it. Chapter 46-47. The Void-Rending Void Devil Blade was a top-notch Rage God demonic weapon that came with a top-notch Rage God demonic skill. Otherwise, it wouldn't be Sui's protective demonic weapon. Now that the aura and bloodline of the demon god ancestor were unleashed, together with Kang Shinmu's cultivation of the 3rd tier of the rebirth realm, he had the power to kill the two Dragon Emperor mentors in front of him. It should be known that the defensive techniques of these two Dragon Emperor mentors were only at the advanced Wang Laoji level. Compared to the top-notch origami demonic skill of the void-ripping void magic blade, they were a whole level lower. Moreover, there was a huge gap between the demon weapon and the dragon weapon. Under such circumstances, it would be strange if Mentor Dragon Emperor could withstand it. The void-ripping void magic blade burst out with countless black blade lights, directly enveloping the Dragon Emperor Mentor. The Dragon Emperor Mentor subconsciously used his defensive dragon martial technique, and also urged his best defensive dragon weapon, which was a human-grade Holy Spirit dragon weapon. Unfortunately, this human-rank divine spiritual dragon weapon was much lower in grade than the void-ripping void magic blade. Instructor Dragon Emperor's own defensive dragon martial technique was also much weaker than the void-ripping void magic blade's top-notch origami demonic skill, void-ripping magic blade rain. The key was that the Dragon Emperor was not prepared. In his haste, he did not even use half of the power of his defensive dragon martial technique and dragon weapon. Naturally, he could not block the move that Kang Shinmu had prepared with all his might. If he had used his full strength, this Dragon Emperor mentor would not have been killed directly. But now, the space-rending magic sword rain was like the Grim Reaper descending from the sky. Countless black sword lights shattered the defense of the Dragon Emperor mentor. Mentor Dragon Emperor immediately let out a furious roar. He wanted to rush out of the attack range of the space-ripping magic sword rain, but before he could completely leave the attack range of the Rage God's demonic skill, he was already completely slashed into pieces by the space-ripping magic sword rain. The entire body of the green divine dragon was directly slashed into a rain of blood, falling towards the scorched earth below. First Instructor Dragon Emperor, dead. Kang Shinmu then focused his attention on the remaining Dragon Emperor mentor. Instructor Dragon Emperor initially wanted to escape, but unfortunately, Kang Shinmu immediately threw out the heavenly demonic orb. The heavenly demonic orb immediately trapped him in a cage formed by countless demonic chi. Instructor Dragon Emperor could not break out no matter how hard he tried. You actually cultivated the inheritance of the demon god clan. This is outrageous, outrageous. Mentor Dragon Emperor's expression changed drastically as he watched his comrade being killed. He couldn't help but tremble in fear. His khaki divine dragon form was as thick as the earth, and there were layers and layers of earth elemental energy protecting him. He was determined to persevere in defense. In this way, how could Kang Shinmu kill him? He was still very calm. Although he panicked for a moment when he saw his comrade die, he quickly focused on using his defensive dragon martial skill in an attempt to block Kang Shinmu's next attack. However, when Kang Shinmu saw this scene, he didn't launch any more attacks. Instead, he spread his devouring power and sent it directly into the cage of the heavenly demonic orb. The cage of the heavenly demonic orb was very strong. Instructor Dragon Emperor was more skilled in defense, so he really couldn't break it. This was also what Kang Shinmu had discovered earlier. That was why he used the heavenly demonic orb to trap this person. It was to ensure that this person couldn't break out of the cage of the heavenly demonic orb. Next, Kang Shinmu's devouring power surged in. His devouring power began to devour that person's defensive dragon martial skill power. Although it was very slow, Kang Shinmu wasn't anxious. Instead, it was that person who was a little anxious. This was because there wasn't much power left in his body. Now that Kang Shinmu seemed to be absorbing his power, he couldn't defend at all. What should he do? Instructor Dragon Emperor immediately thought of an idea. He shouted loudly, "Kang Shinmu, you've miscalculated. Did you think that there were only two of us? Actually, there's more than just two of us. Instructor Cho Jingyun is also with us. Now, it's very likely that he has already captured your 3 little girlfriends. Aren't you going to check on your little girlfriends?" As soon as he said this, Kang Shinmu's face instantly darkened. Of course, he knew Cho Jingyun. That person was the same as Bien Feng. They were both Dragon Emperor's 7th level, Instructor Dragon Emperor. Could it be that that person had really come this time? If he had really come, then Jiang Liuxue and the others might really have met with some mishaps. Of course, it was useless for Kang Shinmu to worry now, but he still had to check on the 3 girls. The imprisoned Dragon Emperor had wanted to use these words to lure Kang Shinmu away, but he hadn't expected that Kang Shinmu would directly use the wind shadow flowing cloud flash to come and go as he pleased. Kang Shinmu quickly passed through the void and arrived at the entrance of the supreme relic below. In the end, he discovered, the entrance was empty. Jiang Liuxue and the other two girls had really disappeared. This situation caused Kang Shinmu's expression to change greatly. He immediately passed through the fiery spiritual energy ocean and returned to the imprisoned Dragon Emperor. Where is Chou Jingyun now? Kang Shinmu snorted coldly. Who knows? Maybe he has gone to the Supreme Relic. Instructor Dragon Emperor said sinisterly, how is it? Instructor Chou has indeed come, right? Have your 3 little girlfriends disappeared? If you release me immediately, only you will die. Your 3 little girlfriends will be fine. Otherwise, all of you will die. Kang Shinmu sneered. He simply could not accept the other party's threat. Moreover, it was very likely that Chou Jingyun had taken the 3 girls away, not the other party. Therefore, Kang Shinmu would not show any mercy to the other party. That would be meaningless. Devour. The devouring power completely erupted at this moment. Just now, his devouring power had surged into the cage of the heavenly demon orb and completely surrounded Instructor Dragon Emperor. At this moment, the devouring power was activated at the same time and directly began to devour the other party's defensive dragon martial art power. This devouring power was extremely tyrannical. After all, it was Kang Shinmu's innate talent. At this moment, the devouring power was like a locust passing through. Once the power was devoured, it was all stored in Kang Shinmu's devouring space and then transformed into his own devouring power. Then, the devouring power once again surged into the cage and joined the raging tide of devouring. If the other party had not been trapped in the cage of the heavenly demon orb, the speed of the devouring power would not have been able to keep up with the speed of his escape. But now, Instructor Dragon Emperor had nowhere to run even if he wanted to. He was completely trapped. This devouring power is really terrifying. Even the demon god ancestor could not help but sigh. This kind of power was simply the bane of all power in the world. It devoured everything, destroyed everything, and then transformed it into its own power. It was too shocking. No wonder the chaotic sky-devouring dragon has the power to destroy this world. Chapter 46-48. The devouring power was a heaven-defying existence. At Kang Shinmu's current level, as long as the opponent did not kill him in one move, then Kang Shinmu would not lose. This was the same as before. Now that the Dragon Emperor mentor was defending with all his might, it was easy for Kang Shinmu to deal with him. The devouring power, directly devour. No matter how strong the opponent was, it was impossible for him to disperse all the devouring power. No matter how strong the opponent was, Kang Shinmu could devour it all, just that the devouring speed was slightly slower than usual. However, sooner or later, the opponent's power would be devoured by Kang Shinmu, along with the opponent's life. Space-tearing void magic blade, space-tearing magic blade rain. Kang Shinmu was burning with anxiety. He wanted to quickly kill the guy in front of him and find the 3 girls, so he used the space-tearing void magic blade, erupting with the strongest power. The demon god ancestor almost wanted to vomit blood. I don't have much bloodline power, don't keep using it, kid. But in this urgent situation, Kang Shinmu could not be bothered to think too much. He would just kill the opponent directly. With the eruption of the space-tearing magic blade rain, the guy's dragon body that was imprisoned in the heavenly demon bead faced the most terrifying attack. Countless black blade lights came from all directions, penetrating the devouring power that enveloped his body, and instantly piercing the opponent's dragon body's vital points. Originally, it would have taken at least 10 minutes to kill him with the devouring power alone. But now, this guy's vital points were directly torn apart by the space-tearing magic blade rain. This guy's defense was originally impregnable, and even the space-tearing magic blade rain could not break through it. However, Kang Shinmu first used the devouring power to devour the dragon defense, riddling it with holes. When the space-tearing magic blade rain attacked, he naturally could not resist it. He died instantly. The Dragon Emperor mentor died with grievances. He never thought that he would die in the hands of a student, and a third-level Dragon Emperor student at that. He could not understand it. Why could Kang Shinmu cultivate 3 inheritances, each more powerful than the last? This was simply subverting his worldview and outlook on life. This fellow's worldview was overturned, and then he died tragically. His entire divine dragon body was riddled with holes, and in the end, Jiang Shenwu's devouring power completely devoured his flesh, blood, and life essence, leaving only a divine dragon skeleton behind. After all, he was an expert at the 6th level of the Dragon Emperor realm. His life essence was already transforming into that of a divine dragon. Even if he removed his divine dragon form, the divine dragon blood essence after his death would leave behind a divine dragon corpse instead of a human body. The dragon skeleton fell into the scorched sinkhole, and it would soon be corroded by the poisonous fire spirit energy in the sinkhole. Then, it would completely disappear into ashes. Kang Shinmu did not care about the 2 Dragon Emperor mentors' corpses, because it was not convenient for Kang Shinmu to take their things. After all, they belonged to the Dragon Emperor mentor. If he took them, it would arouse suspicion. Although they came to kill him, he did not want this matter to spread. Killing the Dragon Emperor mentor, although it was self-defense, was still an unforgivable sin for many people. Of course, if one were to say that he was afraid, Kang Shinmu was not afraid. He just did not want to get into more trouble. After all, he was going to the Dragon God's world soon. And the most important point was that Kang Shinmu really looked down on the 2 Dragon Emperor mentors' things. If they had divine dragon weapons, perhaps Kang Shinmu would consider it, but now, it was better to forget about these broken things. There was no need to take the risk. Instead of fighting for these things, it was better to hurry and find the 3 women. Kang Shinmu quickly arrived at the entrance of the cave where the 3 women had disappeared. Fortunately, when he separated from the 3 women, he had used a dragon martial technique on them, the mysterious dragon seeking shadow. This dragon martial technique was a very low-level dragon martial technique that he had cultivated before. But now, it was still useful to track the 3 women's auras. Kang Shinmu sensed for a while and found that the 3 women were now deep inside the supreme relic. This made him a little puzzled. What had they encountered? If they had really been captured by Chou Jingyun, why did she go to the depths of the supreme relic? But if Chou Jingyun hadn't captured them, why didn't they wait for Kang Shinmu here? Why did they go to the depths of the supreme relic? That's right, there's a possibility. Could it be that they saw Chou Jingyun chasing after them and had nowhere else to go, so they could only go to the depths of the supreme relic? I wonder what the situation is like now. No matter what, Kang Shinmu could only go to the depths of the supreme relic. He transformed into a black dragon and directly flew towards the depths of the cave at an extremely fast speed. The passageways in the supreme relic were intricate and complicated. He had no way to use the wind shadow flowing cloud flash. Once he used it, he probably wouldn't know where he would appear. No one knew what the situation inside the supreme relic was like. Therefore, the demon god ancestor also warned him that it was best to move forward step by step. If he used the wind shadow flowing cloud flash to travel through space, it would be troublesome if he directly passed through a trap. One had to know that some traps had sealed space, so one could only enter but not exit. If Kang Shinmu entered, he wouldn't be able to come out, so he could only slowly fly inside. Kang Shinmu followed the 3 women's auras and quickly flew towards the depths of the supreme relic. The deeper he went, the more he felt a vast and tyrannical aura coming from the deepest part of the supreme ruins. The power that constantly rippled out was like the ripples of the sea, blowing on his body, causing his pores to become a little soft. This power was too strong. Was this the power of a supreme relic? It was shocking. Kang Xinmu also felt a brand new power trace along the way. The power trace was a little familiar, and after careful thought, he realized that it really came from Chou Jingyun's power trace. Indeed, this fellow had also chased after him. Is it because I'm worried about the two Dragon Emperor mentors chasing after me? So I came personally. Kang Xinmu looked a little nervous. After all, Chou Jingyun, a 7th-level mentor of the Dragon Emperor, was chasing after Jiang Liuxue and the other two. However, Kang Xinmu could sense that the trio had yet to be caught by her. He also did not know what method she had used to prevent Chou Jingyun from catching up. It always seemed like there was a little distance between them. Kang Xinmu quickly caught up. There weren't many forks in the Supreme Relic. In fact, there was only one path. This was because this was the closest path that the explorers had dug up, and it led directly to the burial site of the Supreme Relic. Kang Xinmu wanted the corpse of the Supreme Relic, and then devoured it to see what he could get, but he was more concerned about the lives of Jiang Liuxue and the other two women. They absolutely could not die. Otherwise, Kang Xinmu would feel guilty, because he was the one who had brought them out. If anything happened to them, Kang Xinmu would have to take full responsibility. Chapter 46-49. He was familiar because he had seen Chou Jingyun before and could feel his aura. He was unfamiliar because Kang Xinmu had only seen Chou Jingyun in human form, but he had never seen Chou Jingyun in his dragon form. Therefore, Kang Xinmu could only feel that his aura was familiar, but he had never seen Chou Jingyun in his dragon form. It was a divine dragon with flames burning all over its body. It was the grade of the Dragon Emperor's 7th-level inheritance blood essence, which made Chou Jingyun's aura majestic. It was comparable to Chu Yueqiang's battle strength in the past. At that time, Chu Yueqiang fought against the Dragon Emperor Yan alone. She suppressed several Dragon Emperors nearby with one move, and they were no match for her at all. Now Chou Jingyun was the same. He was not as useless as the two Dragon Emperor mentors before, but a Dragon Emperor mentor who was respected even in Donghuang Yangwu College. His combat power was in the middle of the Dragon Emperor mentors, and he also had many talented Dragon Warrior students. Of course, those Dragon Warrior students were still too weak compared to Kang Xinmu. Even if some students had reached the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor and were now going to the Dragon God world for training, they were no match for Kang Xinmu. Kang Xinmu could even kill the Dragon Emperor mentors at the 6th level of the Dragon Emperor. How could those new Dragon Emperor mentors at the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor be a match for Kang Xinmu? However, if Kang Xinmu wanted to deal with Chou Jingyun head-on, he still couldn't do it. Chou Jingyun's strength was too strong, and he had a lot of good things in his hands. He must have even cultivated the powerful Holy Spirit Dragon martial arts technique. Not everyone was like the two Dragon Emperor mentors just now, who did not dare to fight on the battlefield. Chou Jingyun dared to fight, so naturally he would become stronger. This was seizing the opportunity. Some people didn't dare to go to the battlefield and only dared to stay in the rear. Naturally, they wouldn't be able to improve. Even a genius student like Kang Xinmu could kill them now. If they had known that this day would come, the two Dragon Emperor mentors would probably regret it, right? Unfortunately, it was too late to regret now. They had already become skeletons of divine dragons in the scorched earth pit. No one would know that they had died here, and no one would be able to collect their corpses. Now, Kang Xinmu met Chou Jingyun. Chou Jingyun clearly sensed Kang Xinmu's aura as well. She turned her head in the spacious underground passageway. The eyes of the divine dragon burning in flames were like the sun as she looked at Kang Xinmu. At this moment, Kang Xinmu felt like he was being watched. However, he also obtained a piece of good news. He discovered that Chou Jingyun hadn't caught up to Jiang Liuxue and the other two women. Their auras were still in the deeper regions, and Chou Jingyun was chasing after them. How could the three women run so fast? Kang Xinmu didn't know, but it was fine as long as they hadn't fallen into Chou Jingyun's hands. Now that Chou Jingyun had noticed Kang Xinmu, he decisively turned around to deal with Kang Xinmu and attacked Kang Xinmu. He wanted to get rid of Jiang Xinwu, then head into the depths of the Supreme Ruins and bring Jiang Liuxue and the other two out. Seeing this, Kang Xinmu immediately made up his mind to retreat. His speed was extremely fast, and Chou Jingyun simply couldn't catch up to him. Or rather, once he was about to catch up, he would directly use the Sunset Blade Flowing Flash to travel a short distance through space. He had long since figured out the path he had come from, so when he used the Sunset Blade Flowing Flash to travel through space, he would have a very precise location and wouldn't end up in a dangerous place. In this kind of situation, as soon as Chou Jingyun caught up, he would travel through space and wouldn't fall into his opponent's hands. After this happened several times, Chou Jingyun suddenly became angry and impatient. He turned around and quickly flew deeper into the passage. It was very difficult for him to catch Kang Xinmu, but he didn't care. As long as he caught Jiang Liuxue and the other two women, Kang Xinmu would definitely obediently allow himself to be captured. So he directly flew deeper into the passage. Kang Xinmu wasn't to be outdone, so he directly followed behind him. As soon as his opponent showed any signs of turning around, Kang Xinmu would use the Sunset Blade Flowing Flash to retreat, making it impossible for Chou Jingyun to catch up to him. This made Chou Jingyun want to vomit blood. Too shameless, Kang Xinmu was too shameless. But as long as he caught Jiang Liuxue and the other two women, he would like to see if Kang Xinmu was still as slippery as before. The two of them followed the passage of the Supreme Ruins and quickly flew deeper underground. Along the way, they could feel that the Supreme Ruins and the aura of a Supreme Expert were getting closer and closer, becoming thicker and thicker, as if it wasn't far in front of them. Finally, about an hour after Kang Xinmu had flown into the entrance of the Supreme Ruins, he followed closely behind Chou Jingyun and rushed out of the passage, arriving at an extremely vast underground space. This underground space was like the vault of heaven, vast and empty. The entire area was spherical, with a radius of dozens of miles. And in the center of this vast space was another solid spherical object, floating in midair. The endless aura of a Supreme Expert emanated from this earthen yellow sphere, and even the surface of the sphere was burning with flames. In the center of the empty spherical space was an earthen yellow sphere. This was where the remains of the Supreme Expert were buried. Even Kang Xinmu could clearly feel the terrifying power emanating from the central sphere. After arriving here, they were definitely at the end of the Supreme Ruins. The surrounding empty space originally didn't exist, but it had been excavated by the dragon martialists who had come to explore the ruins. Originally, they had planned to dig out the remains of the Supreme Expert, but they hadn't expected that the remains would be surrounded by fire poison. Moreover, this fire poison was so powerful that it was more than 10 times stronger than the fire poison spiritual energy outside. Even the super dragon god couldn't break through the fire poison defense and successfully take away the remains of the Supreme Expert. Kang Xinmu followed Chou Jingyun's Inferno Divine Dragon into this empty space. At first, he was shocked. The surrounding air was filled with the fire poison spiritual energy, but the concentration wasn't high. And when Chou Jingyun rushed here, he was also a little shocked. Obviously, it was also his first time here. But he immediately seized the opportunity to turn around and attack Kang Xinmu. A ferocious, fiery red flame instantly spread towards Jiang Xinwu like a burning cloud. Unfortunately, when Kang Xinmu sensed his attack, he immediately reacted and urged the wind shadow flowing cloud flash to shuttle in other directions in this empty space, easily dodging Chou Jingyun's attack. Chapter 4650. However, the tremors quickly calmed down. Chou Jingyun's power did not cause the entire underground space to collapse. This was because the surrounding rock walls had been condensed and adhered to by the power of a supreme powerhouse, so Chou Jingyun's power was not enough to shatter them. It only caused the entire space to shake a little. This shocked Chou Jingyun, who quickly turned to look at where Kong Shinmu was. Kong Shinmu, stop right there if you dare. Chou Jingyun snorted coldly and roared. I already know that you cultivate the inheritance of void power. I advise you to obediently surrender. Otherwise, if this matter is exposed, you will definitely die. Kong Shinmu narrowed his eyes at these words. He had not expected Chou Jingyun to see the void god totem he had condensed. In this case, he absolutely could not let Chou Jingyun escape. He had to kill her. However, Kong Shinmu was not Chou Jingyun's match in a head-on confrontation. He was now a certain distance away from Chou Jingyun, and he began to observe his surroundings. Because Jiang Shenwu sensed that Jiang Liuxue and the other two's auras were also in this space, he quickly discovered that Jiang Liuxue and the other two were together in a large pile of rocks in a corner of this space. However, the three women seemed to have fainted and collapsed in the pile of rocks. Their breathing was steady, and they did not seem to have suffered any injuries. There are other people in this place. Kong Shinmu came to a conclusion almost immediately. The three women definitely did not run to this place on their own. Firstly, if they had run on their own, Chou Jingyun would have caught up to them. However, they ran much faster than Chou Jingyun. Secondly, if they had run to this place on their own, why would they have fainted in the pile of rocks below? The result was obvious. There were other existences in this supreme relic, and before Chou Jingyun had discovered the three women, they had directly brought them into the empty central space. As for who these people were and what they wanted to do, Kong Shinmu naturally had no idea. What are they trying to do by hiding in this space? Kong Shinmu's face darkened. Then, the Nightmare Ink Beast's sensitive senses allowed him to smell something unusual. He discovered an illusory figure that seemed to be stuck to the center of the yellow sphere. The illusory figure was not real, as if it did not exist, but Kong Shinmu knew that this was the Nightmare Ink Beast's sensitive senses that allowed him to sense the other's aura. If it wasn't for the Nightmare Ink Beast's sensitive senses, he wouldn't even have been able to see that illusory figure. In that case, he wouldn't even know where the other party was. It seemed that the other party's methods were very clever. Even Kong Shinmu had almost failed to discover them. It was only because he had deduced what had happened to Jiang Liuxue and the others that he knew that such an existence had been hiding around them. Now, the illusory shadow seemed to be clinging to the yellow sphere in the center, and no one knew what it was doing. He probably didn't know that Kong Shinmu had already discovered his existence. But Kong Shinmu felt that this fellow seemed to have the aura of the demon god race. It's the successor of the limitless robber demon god. The demon god ancestor's consciousness suddenly transmitted. This limitless robber demon god is extremely proficient in hiding. He has always been an assassin, grave robber, and the like. Many ancient ruins cannot be excavated by ordinary people, but the successor of the limitless robber demon god can easily explore them. Grave robber was a legacy of the demon god race that focused on concealment, assassination, and grave robbing. The limitless robber demon god was also one of the ancient demon gods. Although it was not very elegant, its concealment and assassination abilities were definitely the best in the world. It really is the successor of the demon god race. Kong Shinmu's face darkened. He began to calm down. The current situation was very clear. There were a total of 3 parties in this place. He was one, Chou Jingyun was another, and the successor of the limitless robber demon god was another. As for Jiang Liuxue and the other 2 girls, they were now unconscious and could not affect the overall situation, so they were not included. Kong Shinmu and Chou Jingyun were naturally enemies. This was something that no one could change. Even if Chou Jingyun said that she would not kill Kong Shinmu and wanted to leave, Kong Shinmu would not let Chou Jingyun leave so easily. Therefore, one of them had to die. And Chou Jingyun and the limitless robber demon god were also enemies. The reason why the successor of the limitless bandit fiend god had appeared here was definitely because he wanted to obtain the supreme expert's corpse in the center of the supreme ruins. In the eyes of the martial dragon continent's martial dragon martial artists, that thing definitely belonged to them. Although they had no way of obtaining the skeleton, they could not let a cultivator of the demon god race obtain it. Therefore, once Chou Jingyun knew of the existence of the limitless robber demon god, he would definitely want to kill that guy. In other words, Chou Jingyun was enemies on both sides. Under such circumstances, what would Chou Jingyun do? This Chou Jingyun will definitely join forces with me to deal with the successor of the limitless robber demon god. After all, I am still a person of the martial dragon continent in name and a student of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. I will definitely have to consider the martial dragon continent. Kang Xinmu narrowed his eyes. If that was the case, it would be easy to deal with. He could directly expose the existence of the successor of the limitless robber demon god. Then, everything would be easy to solve. Chapter 46-51. Everything was about to be revealed. Chou Jingyun did not know about the existence of the limitless robber demon god's inheritor. Hence, he flew toward Kang Xinmu, intending to kill him. At that moment, Kang Xinmu unleashed a 9-stage ultimate chi dragon burst toward the limitless robber demon god's inheritor. Suddenly, there was a loud explosion. The limitless robber demon god obviously did not expect to be discovered. His concealment ability was top-notch in the world. He was actually discovered by a dragon martial artist in a kitten. Of course, he did not know about Kang Xinmu's identity. He was a genius from Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. Moreover, he was probably one of the top students in the 4 Dragon Martial Academies. Moreover, Kang Xinmu had multiple identities. He had the Black Dragon's consciousness and the demon god ancestor in his body. Speaking of which, the limitless robber demon god should have bowed before Kang Xinmu. After all, Kang Xinmu was the husband of the demon god clan's little princess, Sui. Although he did not have that title yet, it was already a fact. In addition, Kang Xinmu had merged with the Centipede Ink Beast. With the Centipede Ink Beast's amazing concealment and perception, it was normal for him to be able to discover the limitless robber demon god. When Kang Xinmu's 9-stage ultimate chi dragon burst unleashed 2 bursts of light that exploded beside the limitless robber demon god's inheritor, the demon god's inheritor jumped away immediately. He actually had a certain understanding of the power of space. Of course, the opponent's comprehension was not as good as Kang Xinmu's. However, it was still not bad. He immediately dodged Kang Xinmu's attack and flashed to an empty space not far away. He activated the demon god's bloodline, and the demon god's body covered his entire body, the limitless robber demon god. It was a pure black demon god. It was 1,000 feet tall, and its body was faintly discernible. It had 4 lightning horns that flickered with dark lightning. It looked extremely burly, and it was covered in a pitch-black demon god armor. It was a desolate god-demon weapon. The inheritor of the demon god race directly appeared in the field. Although he was faintly discernible, he had no intention of continuing to hide. Clearly, this demon god clan's inheritor even thought that he could take on 2 people at once. Of course, he didn't know that Kang Xinmu was on his side. No matter what, he had to kill Chou Jingyun first. Chou Jingyun's expression changed when he saw the demon god clan's inheritor appear. He was originally flying towards Kang Xinmu, but now, he stopped moving forward and retreated several hundred feet. "Who are you?" Chou Jingyun barked at the successor of the demon god race. "Do you still need to ask such a meaningless question?" The demon god race's inheritor laughed strangely. His voice made one's hair stand on end, but it was a deliberate disguise. It seemed like he didn't want others to know his true voice. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure suddenly disappeared from where he stood. At the same time, Chou Jingyun felt a surge of demonic energy behind him. It was actually a clone. Since the limitless robber demon god had a strange fighting style, he definitely had the desolate god-demon technique of doppelgangers and fake bodies. Just now, he had directly used a clone to appear in an open space to attract the attention of Kang Xinmu and Chou Jingyun. Then, his real body appeared behind Chou Jingyun, and demonic energy erupted. He actually wanted to kill Chou Jingyun in an instant. It was obvious that the inheritor of the limitless robber demon god felt that Kang Xinmu might be easier to deal with and wouldn't pose any threat to him, so he didn't attack him first. In his opinion, as long as he killed Chou Jingyun, he would be safe, and he could capture Kang Xinmu and send him back to the demon god race to be sold as a slave. That's right, he had brought the three of them here as slaves. He was prepared to go back to the demon god race to sell them after exploring this supreme relic. Now, in his eyes, Kang Xinmu had also become a candidate for slave. At this moment, the limitless robber demon god launched a sneak attack on Chou Jingyun. Demonic energy surged like dark clouds, and the surging waves of demonic energy enveloped Chou Jingyun entirely. This was an extremely powerful desolate god-demon technique, and it had a very strong corrosive effect. Moreover, because it was a sneak attack, Chou Jingyun had no time to prepare a defensive dragon martial technique, so he was completely enveloped. The corrosive power invaded. Chou Jingyun immediately exploded with his strongest power. The power of the burning heaven raging flames all over his body exploded violently, exploding in all directions. After all, his cultivation had reached the peak of the rebirth tribulation stage. At this moment, when he unleashed his full strength, coupled with the earth-rank saint's spiritual dragon weapon, he instantly turned the situation around and burned all the demonic aura that enveloped him. Seeing this, the limitless robber demon god was a little puzzled. His entire faintly discernible demon god body quickly retreated, intending to hide again. But what he did not expect was that at this moment, the little black dragon that he had wanted to capture as a slave would actually explode with power that he had not expected at all. 16-winged heavenly demon god body, appear. Kang Xinmu's strongest move was undoubtedly the demon god ancestor's bloodline, combined with his own cultivation realm, and the use of a top-grade desolate god demonic weapon. So now, he directly exploded with it. This made the demon god ancestor a little puzzled. Was he being used as a tool? The demon god ancestor's bloodline was not unlimited. Of course, this limit applied to himself. Now that Kang Xinmu borrowed the power of his bloodline to activate the demonic weapon, his power would not be completely exhausted. But the key was that Kang Xinmu's demon god race inheritance bloodline came from the demon god ancestor. Now that Kang Xinmu used a little more, the speed at which Kang Xinmu's demon god inheritance bloodline would increase slower. In fact, every time he used it, it would be delayed by 1 or 2 months. Kid, do you still want to increase the demon god race inheritance bloodline so that you can return to the demon god great world and marry the little princess? Think of it this way. Every time you use my bloodline, you have to spend 1 or 2 months to increase the level of your demon god inheritance bloodline. The demon god ancestor's consciousness was simply exasperated. But now, Kang Xinmu had no other choice. Old senior, please bear with me. I have no other choice. Now, if I want to kill Chou Jingyun, I can only use this method. Also, the limitless robber demon god's inheritance bloodline doesn't look any weaker than mine. Since I want to join forces with him, I definitely have to show off my demon god race inheritance. Don't you think so? Kang Xinmu had no other choice. Who asked him to be in this situation? Chapter 46-52. Chou Jingyun would never have dreamed that Kang Xinmu, in addition to practicing the inheritance of the void, had also practiced the inheritance of the demon god race. After all, to Chou Jingyun, it was an ironclad rule that those who practiced the inheritance of the dragon god race could not practice other inheritances. There had never been an exception in the world. Even if there were, it was like a legend. He never thought that it would happen to him. But now, he saw that not only did Kang Shinmu use the inheritance of the void, but he also practiced the inheritance of the demon god race. This was too terrifying. What was going on? Even if Kang Shinmu had the ability, how did he get the opportunity to practice these two inheritances? This was completely illogical. A person could practice 3 inheritances at the same time, and then cultivate them all to the peak of the king level, and even cultivate the inheritance of the dragon god race to the 3rd level of the dragon emperor? This was too heaven-defying. Could it be that this Kang Shinmu was a genius that only appeared in legends? You, Kang Shinmu. Are you a human or a ghost? Are you a human or a ghost? Chou Jingyun was not in the mood to deal with the limitless robber demon god's inheritor. This was because the shock that Kang Shinmu brought him was too serious. It was so serious that he stopped thinking for a while. This was the most shocking thing he had ever seen in his life. A single person had cultivated 3 different inheritances? Dream on. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would never have believed it. But now, the truth was directly placed in front of him. When Kang Shinmu transformed into the body of the demon god, 16 pitch-black wings spread out. That was the body of the 16-winged heavenly demon god, which was also the inheritance of the demon god race's royal family. Generally speaking, only the demon god race's royal family could obtain the inheritance of the 16-winged heavenly demon god. At this time, not only Chou Jingyun, but even the limitless robber demon god's inheritor was inexplicably shocked. He had never thought that he would meet the demon god race's royal family inheritor in the small world of the dragon martial continent. This was too frightening, wasn't it? This was simply terrifying. The successor of the limitless bandit devil god immediately shot a look at Kang Shinmu. The look contained a hint of respect. At the same time, there was a hint of doubt in his eyes. What should we do now? Should we kill this dragon warrior together? Kang Shinmu nodded. The 16-winged heavenly demon god stood up straight. It was more than 1,200 feet tall. Its eyes were filled with pitch-black demonic energy. Demonic light radiated in all directions. There was also a devouring power covering its entire body. Even if he had transformed into a demon god, Kang Shinmu's devouring power was still his innate ability. This was his most fundamental power, and it was unshakable. He wanted to join forces with the successor of the limitless thief demon god to kill Chou Jingyun. Do it. Kang Shinmu snorted faintly. Then, he threw out the sky-imprisoning demon bead and the space-ripping void demon blade. Countless pitch-black demon beads shot out one after another and swept towards Chou Jingyun. A demon bead cage appeared in mid-air and connected to form a giant black net. It completely covered Chou Jingyun's inferno divine dragon body. How dare you! Chou Jingyun was so furious that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The flames on his inferno divine dragon body started burning. At the same time, he desperately retreated back the way he came, trying to escape. He knew that it was absolutely impossible for him to fight against 2 opponents at the same time. The fact that Kang Shinmu had appeared here meant that Kang Shinmu had already killed 2 Dragon Emperor mentors by himself. In that case, even if it was just Kang Shinmu alone, he would be able to fight Chou Jingyun to a draw. In the past, Chou Jingyun had never dared to believe that a student from the 3rd floor of the Dragon Emperor could actually be as strong as him. But now, he had seen it for himself. There really were such geniuses in this world that were neither human nor ghost. It was too terrifying. Chou Jingyun was now scared out of his wits. He did not want to die. Why did he have to provoke Kang Shinmu? His mind was filled with regret now. It would be very difficult for him to escape now. The Inferno divine dragon body erupted with all its strength and immediately rushed out of the demon bead's cage. It tore apart the power of the demon bead and rushed out. However, right after that, the limitless robber demon god's inheritor swept over. At the same time, 4 limitless robber demon god's inheritor bodies appeared in front of Chou Jingyun. Endless devil qi surged over like a surging sea of devil qi. It exploded in an instant and blocked Chou Jingyun's path of retreat. Among these 4 figures, which one was the real one and which one was the fake one? It was impossible to tell. Not to mention Chou Jingyun, even Kang Xinmu could not tell which of the 4 clones were real and which were fake. In other words, all 4 clones were fake. No matter which one Chou Jingyun chose to target, it would pose a real threat to the limitless robber demon god. This was something that the ancestor demon god had told Kang Xinmu. Otherwise, Kang Xinmu would not have been able to tell. The limitless robber demon god's power is really strange. He actually has such a cloning technique that passes off as the real one. Kang Xinmu was a little impressed. He knew that in the 4 dragon martial academies, there were a few dragon martial techniques that cultivated clones. However, those dragon martial techniques were far inferior compared to the limitless robber demon god's cloning demonic technique. Chapter 46-53. If all this fire poison energy were to invade Chou Jingyun's body, he would definitely die. Of course, Kang Xinmu would not use all his strength to deal with Chou Jingyun. After all, the limitless thief demon god's inheritor might not coexist peacefully with him. After all, the matter of robbing the supreme ruins should be a secret to the inheritor of the limitless thief demon god. This guy might not want this matter to spread, so he might end up fighting with Kang Xinmu. Kang Xinmu did not believe in this kind of grave robber, so he definitely had to guard against him. Therefore, Kang Xinmu condensed half of the fire poison spiritual energy and poured it into the power of the void-rending void magic blade. Once the void-rending void magic blade was activated, the fire poison immediately spread and permeated the rain of the void-rending void magic blade. Countless fire poison accompanied the pitch-black rain of the void-rending void magic blade and swept towards Chou Jingyun. Chou Jingyun was trying his best to break through the obstruction of the 4 demonic clones. Most of his strength was spent on this. He used the dragon martial technique several times, but he could not break through the obstruction of the 4 demonic clones. It was not that he looked down on Kang Xinmu, but he felt that no matter how powerful Kang Xinmu was, he would need some time to kill him. He only needed to slightly defend himself. However, he did not expect that Kang Xinmu would use such a terrifying fire poison spiritual energy to condense it into the void-rending void magic blade and explode it in the form of the void-rending void magic blade. The pitch-black blade lights of the void-rending void magic blade were all entwined with endless fire poison spiritual energy. At this moment, they swept towards Chou Jingyun. Chou Jingyun treated it as an ordinary attack and subconsciously condensed a layer of flame barrier around his divine dragon body. However, he was shocked to find that the flame barrier was actually penetrated by the pitch-black blade lights of the void-rending void magic blade. Then, the penetrating pitch-black blade lights directly condensed the fire-poison spiritual energy and penetrated his divine dragon body. Countless fiery poisonous spiritual energy instantly eroded into his body, and then, in an instant, it exploded. Although Chou Jingyun himself was also a fire-attributed dragon warrior, he really did not have the slightest ability to resist these fire-attributed spiritual qi. Kang Xinmu had only condensed half of the fire-poison spirit qi, which was not enough to kill him, but it was enough to weaken his combat strength by at least half. Moreover, even if he managed to escape from this place, his strength would be greatly reduced. Even if this fire-poison spirit qi didn't kill someone, it would still make them wish they were dead. This Chou Jingyun was really unlucky. The fire-poison spiritual energy Kang Xinmu had prepared was all used on him. Zhou Jingyun tasted all the killing power that the devouring power devoured. He sprinted madly in pain, wanting to retreat out of the supreme ruins. However, seeing that he was heavily injured and his strength was greatly reduced, how could the successor of the limitless banded demon god give up on this opportunity? Suddenly, countless pitch-black, poison-soaked blades condensed in the void and swept towards Zhou Jingyun under the explosion of the boundless demonic aura. In an instant, they pierced through his body that was riddled with holes. Every black blade soaked in poison was able to stab his vital parts. Very quickly, the body of the divine dragon was pierced through by the black blade soaked in poison. Dragon blood that was dyed black flew out and even burned when it landed on the ground. This was the poisonous smoke produced by the interaction between the fire poison and the toxicity of the pitch-black blades. If an ordinary dragon warrior below the level of Dragon King came into contact with it, their body would rot and they would die. However, this poisonous smoke had already spread throughout Zhou Jingyun's divine dragon body. It could be said that compared to the two Dragon Emperor mentors, Zhou Jingyun's death was obviously much more painful. He had suffered all kinds of torture before he died. Kang Xinmu, you deserve to die 10,000 times, you deserve to die 10,000 times. Zhou Jingyun was in so much pain that he could not speak. However, before he died, he still used all his strength to roar angrily and cast a final, hateful look at Kang Xinmu. Then, his flaming divine dragon body was riddled with holes. His entire body was emitting poisonous smoke and his flesh had dried up. All that was left was the divine dragon skeleton that was emitting poisonous smoke on the ground in this empty space. Protect them. When Kang Xinmu saw this, he immediately descended and landed next to the pile of rubble on the ground with a loud bang. He immediately released the heavenly demon orb and enveloped the area next to the pile of rubble. It protected the three girls so that they would not breathe in the poisonous smoke and die in their sleep. With the protection of the heavenly demonic orb's cage, even though they were imprisoned, the forces from the outside could not threaten them. My name is Lin Xiaotian. May I ask, who are you? At this moment, a rather clear voice reached Kang Xinmu's ears. Kang Xinmu turned around and was momentarily stunned. He saw that it was a young man dressed in a black robe. He had delicate features and a cunning look on his face. However, when he faced Kang Xinmu, he was somewhat reserved and respectful. Humph, the inheritance of the 16-winged heavenly demon god is a royal inheritance. This is absolutely true. This person already has a heart of respect for you. When the ancestor demon god saw this, he immediately looked a little proud. Hello, Lin Xiaotian. Kang Xinmu had not completely let down his guard. Seeing that the other party had removed his demon god form, Kang Xinmu also returned to the appearance of the black-robed young man. He was a little emotional. This Lin Xiaotian looked even younger than him, but his attainments in the inheritance of the demon god clan surpassed Kang Xinmu by so much. The grade of his limitless thief demon god inheritance had now reached the 7th level of the emperor stage. However, Kang Xinmu was now only at the 3rd level of the dragon emperor. This gap was a little big. The other party did not get too close. Kang Xinmu was wary of him, and he was obviously also wary of Kang Xinmu. Moreover, he did not want to rashly get close to Kang Xinmu and cause a misunderstanding. My name is Kang Xinmu. Kang Xinmu gave his name. Kang Xinmu, Lin Xiaotian looked at Kang Xinmu from left to right. He flew in the air, his eyes full of curiosity. Are you from the Dragon God clan? Or are you from the Demon God clan? Kang Xinmu hesitated for a moment. This question was a little difficult for him to answer. However, he quickly said with certainty, I was born in the Dragon God clan, so naturally, I am from the Dragon God clan. However, because of some coincidences, I cultivated the inheritance of the Demon God clan, and it happened to be the inheritance of the 16-winged heavenly demon god. That is the royal inheritance. Chapter 46-54. The bloodline of the demon god clan was not innate, but it was similar to the bloodline of the dragon god clan. It was bestowed by the higher-ups at a certain age. Whatever inheritance was obtained, that was what it was. He, Lin Xiaotian, had obtained the bloodline of the boundless thief demon god. This inheritance was relatively strong, but in the end, it could not be considered elegant, which made him quite regretful. Of course, he would not belittle himself because of this. Soon, he came back to his senses and looked up and down at Kong Shinmu curiously. You have both the bloodline of the divine dragon and the bloodline of the demon god. How did you do it? Amazing, too amazing. Can you teach me? I'm afraid I can't teach you. Kong Shinmu was a little regretful. All right. Lin Xiaotian nodded helplessly. He was still a little wary of Kong Shinmu. After all, he was in the small world of the Dragon Martial Continent, which belonged to the Dragon God clan. If he, a demon god, did something wrong, he would die a violent death. Tomb raiding was a very shameful thing. Now that he was caught, he had to be more vigilant. Of course, Lin Xiaotian looked very friendly, but in fact, he was not as easy to talk to as he appeared to be. He was just a little surprised by Kong Shinmu's bloodline of the 16-winged heavenly demon god. But now that he thought about it, Kong Shinmu was an inheritor of the Dragon God clan. Why was he chatting with this guy here? Lin Xiaotian did not waste any time and directly flew to the place where Chou Jingyun had died. He found Chou Jingyun's storage dragon weapon and took out all the things inside, which could be considered as his own. Kong Shinmu, these things belong to me? Lin Xiaotian licked his lips, and a hint of slyness appeared in his eyes. Of course, if you want to split them with me, we can fight again. It could be seen that Lin Xiaotian was not so friendly after he realized what had happened. Unfortunately, Kong Shinmu was not interested in Chou Jingyun's things at all. He shook his head, stood up, and asked Lin Xiaotian, "You are an inheritor of the demon god race. What are you doing here? Are you here to rob a tomb? It's not that easy to obtain the corpse of a supreme powerhouse. If you want to barge in, I'm afraid you'll die." Of course I know that. Lin Xiaotian's expression immediately darkened. No matter what, this is a supreme relic that I discovered. Kong Shinmu, are you also interested in these ruins? If you're interested, we can split it evenly. I've already given you Chou Jingyun's things, yet you still want to split the treasures of this supreme relic? Dream on. Kong Shinmu narrowed his eyes. However, I'm not interested in the things here. I just came here to look for someone. Now that I've found them, I'm going to take them away. That won't do. Lin Xiaotian looked at Kong Shinmu, licked his lips and said, I caught these 3 girls. When the time comes, I can bring them back and sell them for a good price. If you want to take it away, you'll have to pay for it. I think your 2 desolate gods' magic weapons are not bad. I've already given you Chou Jingyun's things, how can I not exchange them for the 3 of them? Kong Shinmu narrowed his eyes. If you're not convinced, we can fight. Then forget it. Take them away. Remember not to hide to the side. Once I find out that you're up to no good, I'll definitely make you regret it. Lin Xiaotian warned Kong Shinmu. It seemed like he really was here to explore the supreme ruins and obtain the corpse of the supreme powerhouse. Kong Shinmu also wanted to obtain it, but since this guy wanted it, then he would let him give it a try. In any case, the demon god ancestor had said that in the entire demon god race, there weren't many people who could break through the fire poison and obtain the corpse of the supreme powerhouse. This Lin Xiaotian was definitely not one of them. If he couldn't break it, then Kong Shinmu would come back and break it. At that time, Lin Xiaotian wouldn't be around, and Kong Shinmu would be able to relax a little. Right now, in front of Lin Xiaotian, Kong Shinmu didn't dare to use his full strength. What if this guy launched a sneak attack from the side? Therefore, he could just take Jiang Liuxue and the other two girls away first. After making his decision, Kang Xinmu brought the three girls and left the underground space. As for Lin Xiaotian, he continued to study the rock sphere in the center, wanting to break it open. The sphere contained an extremely dense fire poison aura. Once it was broken, the fire poison would leak out, and he would definitely die. Therefore, he had to study it carefully, and he had already been studying it for a few days. This time, he felt that there was someone at the entrance of the cave, so he went out to take a look. When he saw Jiang Liuxue and the other two girls, he immediately brought them back. However, Lin Xiaotian looked at the back view of Kang Xinmu and his men as they left, and secretly made up his mind to try for another 3 days. If he still couldn't break this thing in 3 days, he would simply leave. In any case, he had already gained a lot from killing a dragon martial artist on the 7th layer of the Dragon Emperor continent. Of course, the 7th layer of the Dragon Emperor continent didn't have anything good. There were only 2 divine spirit dragon weapons and some heavenly treasures of low value. But at least he didn't come here in vain. That Kang Xinmu, I'm afraid he will spread the news and have the dragon warriors come and surround me. He. How could I, Lin Xiaotian, be so easily surrounded and annihilated? Try for another 3 days. If I can't do it in 3 days, I'll just run away. Lin Xiaotian continued to study. After Kang Xinmu brought the 3 girls out of the supreme ruins, he brought them along and used the Sun Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash. He did not know where exactly this place was, so he wanted to determine its location. In the end, he found that this place was not far from the boundary forest, and there was a Dragon Emperor Kingdom on the east and west sides. These 2 Dragon Emperor Kingdoms of the Dragon Emperor Kingdom were relatively famous in the Dragon Martial Fortress. They were the powerful Dragon Emperors who had already set foot on the 5th floor of the Dragon Emperor. Of course, it was hard to say whether Kang Xinmu was really strong. In this situation, Kang Xinmu did not directly bring the 3 girls back to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. Instead, he found an inn to stay temporarily in the capital of the Dragon Emperor Kingdom on the west side of the scorched 10,000-year forest. He planned to settle the matter here first before returning to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. The scorched 10,000-year forest was a rare place. Kang Xinmu must obtain the corpse of the supreme expert. I'll wait for 3 days. I'll wake up Jiang Liuxue and the others first, then I'll go back and deal with it. In 3 days, that Lin Xiaotian should have left, right? If he hasn't left by then, I can only deal with him again. At most, I'll split whatever I find with him equally. Kang Xinmu made up his mind. Of course, it would be difficult to split equally, and it was very likely that both sides would fight. But at that time, Kang Xinmu would not have the 3 girls to worry about, and he would not have to be afraid. He could completely go against Lin Xiaotian. Chapter 46-55. That night, Jiang Liuxue and the other 2 girls woke up. In the capital of the Dragon Emperor country, Kang Xinmu told them to have a good rest. He could tell that they were fine, just a little frightened. After all, when they were kidnapped by Lin Xiaotian, they really didn't know what he wanted to do to them. If he had any bad intentions towards them, they wouldn't be able to resist at all. Now that they were rescued by Kang Xinmu, they were relieved. However, the 3 girls weren't too frightened. After all, Kang Xinmu had already rescued them. Therefore, when Kang Xinmu told them to have a good rest, they didn't want to rest. Instead, they planned to cultivate hard and buy as much time as possible. Therefore, Kang Xinmu thought about it and gave the 3 girls some cultivation resources. These cultivation resources were quite precious for dragon martial artists. Some of them contained dragon mark energy, which could only be obtained in the 4 great dragon martial academies. Moreover, for the students in the outermost Alcade district, these cultivation resources were quite precious, and they needed to spend a lot of experience points to exchange for them. That's right, for the three girls, the most important thing right now was to complete the training missions and earn experience points. The main reason was that they weren't strong enough. It wasn't even easy to earn experience points. Their strength was nothing in the Dragon Martial continent. However, the three girls' talent was not bad. At least in Kong Shinmu's eyes, they could smoothly become Dragon Emperor without any bottlenecks. Moreover, they could even reach the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor. As long as they had enough cultivation resources, their improvement speed wouldn't be slow. In any case, at their current cultivation level, it wasn't too difficult to increase their realm. They just had to grasp the breakthrough of their strength. After all, if they broke through too quickly, they wouldn't be able to control all their strength, which would hinder their future improvement in combat strength. Consolidating their combat strength was something they had to do no matter what. In the past 6 months, Kong Shinmu hadn't improved much. He was mainly consolidating his combat strength. If half a year ago, he could use 70% of his strength, then now he could use 90% of his strength. Neither his cultivation base nor the grade of the divine dragon blood essence had improved too quickly. In the past half a year, he had only advanced by 1 level. Therefore, he spent most of his time consolidating his combat strength. Now, he could basically control the power in his body completely. This was an extremely important thing for a cultivator, so Kong Shinmu also warned the three women that even if they had the opportunity to improve quickly, they had to act according to their capabilities. They must not let their power become loose and uncontrollable. 3 days. Kong Shinmu transferred a lot of Dragon Mark energy to them. Coupled with their own cultivation, the three women's divine dragon heritage blood essence directly reached the level of Dragon King. Dragon King was just the beginning for the students of the Dragon Martial Academy. The treasures of heaven and earth containing the energy of the Dragon Mark that Kong Shinmu had given them were nothing to Kong Shinmu. The energy of the Dragon Mark was not even enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. It was completely insufficient for him to break through from the 3rd level of Dragon Emperor to the 4th level of Dragon Emperor. However, it was extremely precious to the three women. If they absorbed all the treasures of heaven and earth containing the energy of the Dragon Mark, they could at least reach the grade of the divine dragon blood essence of Dragon King's 3rd level. This was the difference between the Dragon Emperor and the Dragon King. Because of this, when cultivating in the Dragon Martial Academy, there were no void rifts. Even a super genius like Yu Tianxiang found it difficult to break through the grade of the divine dragon heritage blood essence. It was too slow to absorb the energy of the Dragon Mark in the Dubhe district alone. It would probably take several years to go from the 3rd level of Dragon Emperor to the 4th level. Not to mention from the 4th level to the 5th, the time needed would be doubled. 3 days later, Kong Shinmu let the three women cultivate on their own while he made a trip to the Supreme Relic. The Supreme Relic was located in the center of the vast scorched 10,000-year-wood forest. Therefore, the outside world basically did not know what happened there, and no dragon martial artist would want to live in the 10,000-year-wood forest. In that place, the flesh of the demonic beasts that ate the 10,000-year-wood forest was extremely hard and tasteless. There were also no vegetables or fruits there. Who could tolerate that? Therefore, there were no dragon martial artists living around the 10,000-year-wood forest. It could be said that there were very few people there. Alone, Kong Shinmu activated the instant magic ring again and directly shuttled towards the center of the 10,000-year-wood forest. He had already located the location of the scorched earth sinkhole at the entrance of the Supreme Relic. As long as he used the instant magic ring, he would be able to reach it directly. However, when he reached the top of the scorched earth sinkhole, he was shocked. He saw that the surrounding fire-poisoned spiritual chi had exploded and filled the sky. What's going on? Kong Shinmu was stunned. The scorched earth sinkhole below had completely exploded. Countless fire poison filled the sky and spiritual chi soared into the sky. It was as if a huge explosion had taken place. Kang Shinmu immediately transformed into a dragon and flew downwards. Then, he barely found the entrance of the supreme relic that had collapsed from the explosion and flew in. Devouring power surrounded Kang Shinmu's body, constantly devouring the fire poison in the surroundings in preparation for the upcoming battle. Then, he quickly advanced towards the depths of the supreme relic. Along the way, he found that many parts of the tunnel had collapsed. It must be known that these rock layers had absorbed the fire-poison spiritual qi and become incomparably sturdy. But now, they had all collapsed. It could be seen that a fierce battle had taken place here, or perhaps a violent explosion had taken place. As for what exactly had happened, Kang Shinmu was still unclear. However, he did not feel any powerful aura in the surroundings, or rather, there was only one powerful aura, and that was from the direction of the corpse of the Supreme Expert, which was constantly emitting tyrannical power of the Supreme Expert. Along the way, Kang Shinmu could only continuously devour all the boulders that blocked the tunnel before he could continue moving forward. After a few times, he finally arrived at the center of the Supreme Relic. He was shocked to find that the entire empty space had collapsed. There were jagged boulders, collapsed rock layers, and countless fire poison had erupted. If it was any other dragon warrior, even if it was a super Shinran, they would have been dead by now. In other words, Kang Shinmu could use the devouring power to devour the surrounding fire poison spiritual qi, and then make himself immune to the fire poison spiritual qi. When he arrived at the center of the originally empty space, he found that the earthen yellow sphere in the center had indeed exploded. Countless fire-poison spiritual qi erupted in the surroundings, and what appeared in front of Kang Shinmu was a giant skeleton that was thousands of feet tall, submerged in countless gravel and fire poison. That Lin Xiaotian really did shatter the sphere, exposing the corpse of this supreme expert. But, where is that guy? Chapter 46-56. Kang Shinmu began to search the surroundings. Even he couldn't hold on under such a situation. If it wasn't for his heaven-defying devouring power, he would have died a few times over. He circled around the gigantic demon god skeleton and began to search the surroundings. This demon god skeleton was obviously the corpse of the supreme expert. It was a good thing for Kang Shinmu, but before he began to absorb and devour it, he had to ensure that there were no other dangers in the surroundings. The main danger came from Lin Xiaotian. He had to determine Lin Xiaotian's condition. Soon, Kang Shinmu found Lin Xiaotian. This guy had transformed into the body of the limitless thief demon god. He was now unconscious and had fallen into a pile of rubble. However, although this person was unconscious, the surrounding fire poison did not approach his body. Instead, it was blocked by a demon weapon. This guy might wake up soon. Kang Shinmu narrowed his eyes. This demon weapon is powerful. To be able to block such a strong fire poison, even a super Shinran would not be able to do so, right? You're right, this really is a demon god weapon of the super Shinran level. The demon god ancestor's consciousness in Kang Shinmu's body suddenly spoke. It seems that this little guy also has a demon god behind him. However, the power of this demon god weapon is almost exhausted. It seems that this kid will not wake up. Kang Shinmu, send him to the battlefield of the demon god. Kang Shinmu thought about it and decided that this was the only way. In front of the demon god ancestor, Kang Shinmu could not kill this kid, but he could not let him stay here like this. It was better to send him away first. This matter could be done with the instant magic ring. Soon, Kang Shinmu activated the instant magic ring and enveloped Lin Xiaotian's limitless thief demon god body with the power of the void. If this guy was awake, Kang Shinmu would not be able to do such a thing. However, this guy was unconscious now, so Kang Shinmu could do whatever he wanted. He directly activated the 3 void arrays of the instant magic ring and sent Lin Xiaotian's demon body away. After a while, on the battlefield of the demon god race near the void crack, Lin Xiaotian's limitless banded demon god body suddenly appeared. He was protected by the demon god weapon of the super Shenlong level, but its power had been depleted at this moment. If Kang Xinmu had not sent him away, this guy would not have woken up and would have died from the fire poison. If Kang Xinmu had not sent him away, this guy would not have woken up and would have died due to the fire poison. Very quickly, someone from the demon god clan found his tracks and quickly sent someone to bring him back. Although this guy was just a grave robber, he was still a member of the demon god clan. Furthermore, he had a super Shenron level expert behind him. Even if he had secretly come to the Dragon Martial continent, he would not be killed by the demon god clan. And the facts prove that this was indeed the case. After this guy was captured by the demon god race's regular army, he was imprisoned, and the demon god level powerhouses behind him were directly informed to come and arrest him. That would definitely be a long time in the future, since he was not sure if Lin Xiaotian would return after waking up. Jiang Shenwu directly brought the corpse of the supreme expert and used the power of the instant magic ring to bring it underground where he and Sui had been trapped at the beginning. That place was extremely far from here, probably thousands of miles away. However, using the instant magic ring, it was easy to do. Kang Xinmu did not want to wait for danger to come, especially when he was devouring the corpse of the supreme expert. He and Sui began to fall through the gap in the sky barrier. The underground of the volcano was a relatively safe place. Moreover, there were layers of rock barriers, so there was no need to worry that the fire poison of the supreme expert's corpse would spread to harm the world. Kang Xinmu brought the supreme expert's corpse directly to the underground magma flow under the volcano. This space was also extremely spacious. The corpse was thousands of feet tall, but it did not take up the entire space. And Kang Xinmu was like a beast that had found its prey. Looking at the giant corpse, he was still a little shocked. The devouring power enveloped his whole body at all times, devouring the power of the fire poison. This supreme expert's corpse was an excellent thing for Kang Xinmu. For example, when Kang Xinmu devoured the corpse of a dragon warrior, he could improve the level of his divine dragon inheritance blood essence. If he devoured the corpse of this supreme expert, the level of his divine dragon inheritance blood essence would also improve, and it was very likely that he would comprehend some unique things. After all, this was a powerful existence of the supreme expert. In the great world of the dragon gods, it was well known that if one wanted to reach the level of the super Shenron or the supreme expert, it would take a long time to comprehend. It was not achieved overnight, and it was definitely not something that could be broken through with enlightenment. Because of this, it was so difficult to break through to the supreme expert level. Whether it was the supreme Shenron or the supreme demon god, this level was accumulated over a long period of time. Only when one had a deeper understanding of the power of the supreme expert could they finally break through in one fell swoop. Therefore, if Kang Xinmu devoured the corpse of the supreme expert, he might be able to gain some understanding of the supreme expert's power, which would be of great benefit to him in the future. Of course, this was the inheritance of the supreme expert of the demon god clan. After devouring it, it might not be of any benefit to Kang Xinmu's dragon god's cultivation, but it would greatly improve his demon god clan inheritance. Start devouring. At first, Kang Xinmu's devouring speed was very slow, but he was not in a hurry. He was very patient. Of course, he knew that Xiaobai was still waiting for him at the Longwu fortress. They would go back to Xiaobai's hometown together to say goodbye. Yuyaji, the dean of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy, and Linghu Dyer, the chief dragon emperor mentor, were also waiting for them to finish their business, and then they would set off for the holy lands of the five extremes black ice in the great world of the dragon gods. But there was no other way. This supreme expert of the demon god's inheritance had to be devoured now. Otherwise, Kang Xinmu would not be at ease. Who knew if it would be stolen by someone? Therefore, he had to devour it first before he could be at ease. It will probably take half a month. Kang Xinmu first tried to devour some corpses, and then he estimated the time. Then, he chose to go back to the Longwu fortress and explain the situation to Xiao Bai and Linghu Dyer. He mainly said that he still had something to do and would need to wait for half a month. Xiao Bai did not have much of a problem. Mainly, Linghu Dyer was a little helpless. When you go to the holy lands of the five extremes black ice, you can't be so willful. You have to arrive at the appointed time. Of course, this time, you were specially selected, so it's not a big problem. If it were someone else, they would probably be severely punished. Chapter 46-57. Kang Xinmu could only say that he would do it as soon as possible. Then, he returned to the place where the Supreme Demon God's remains were located, in the magma space under the volcano. The Supreme Demon God's remains, which were tens of thousands of feet tall, still stood there. Kang Xinmu began to devour the remains with his devouring power, absorbing all the power into his body. These skeletons contained a supreme level of power, as well as the power of the demon god's inherited blood essence. Although this was the myriad tribulation ghost fire demon god, Jiang Shenwu could still devour it and turn it into his own 16-winged heavenly demon god's blood essence. This was because they were all demon gods, and the essence contained in their blood essence was the same. In this dark underground, Kang Xinmu continued to devour. A steady stream of demon god's inherited blood essence was integrated into Kang Xinmu's body, causing his demon god's inherited blood essence to constantly increase in grade. Originally, his demon god's inherited blood essence was at the peak of the 9th level of the demon king level. If he wanted to break through to the demon emperor level, he would need to absorb and devour a lot of cultivation resources. But now, after devouring the remains of this powerful supreme demon god, his demon god's inherited blood essence was rapidly breaking through to the demon emperor level. This speed simply made the demon god ancestors gasp in amazement, and their eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. This is too terrifying. Kang Xinmu, what kind of monster is this devouring power of yours? No, it should be the chaotic heaven devouring dragon. You old black dragon, no wonder you can destroy the entire world. This kind of power is too heaven-defying. Jiang Shenwu, let me tell you something. There are many supreme-level ruins in the Chaos battlefield. There are basically all supreme-level skeletons and bones in them. If you were in the Chaos battlefield, I'm afraid you would be able to break through at a speed that others can't even imagine. And most importantly, there are likely to be many ancestral dragon relics in the Chaos battlefield. These relics are the most precious. Of course, you are not qualified to step into them yet. They are all guarded. As Kang Xinmu listened to these words, his heart was as calm as an ancient well. Although there were many supreme relics in the Chaos battlefield, they belonged to different clans. Not all of them belonged to the Dragon God clan, the Demon God clan, or even the Virtual Human clan. Kang Xinmu could devour the relics. It would be useful to him. However, devouring the corpses of the supreme experts of the other races would not be of much use to Kang Xinmu. Moreover, Kang Xinmu also had some understanding of the situation of the chaotic battlefield. That place was a place where tens of thousands of races were fighting fiercely, and it was not a peaceful place. Lin Yuji and the other two were sent to the chaotic battlefield. Although they were following other experts of the Dragon God clan, their safety was still a problem. How could it be as comfortable as devouring the remains of the supreme ruins of the martial dragon continent? It had to be said that there might not be a chance to devour supreme-level corpses and remains in the future. Even if there was, it would definitely be a rare opportunity. There was no competition in the martial dragon continent, and no one knew about the existence of the supreme remains. The key was that the items around the supreme remains had already been scavenged clean. Hence, not many people came here. As for the seal on the supreme remains itself, even the Super Shenron could not break it. Hence, Jiang Shenwu naturally benefited from it. Originally, Kang Shinmu wanted to use the devouring power to break the seal, but he did not expect that Lin Xiaotian would actually break the seal, which benefited Kang Shinmu. At this moment, Kang Shinmu was constantly devouring the powerful remains of the supreme remains. The demon god's inheritance blood essence in his body was constantly breaking through, and breaking through again. From the peak of the 9th level of the Demon King to the Demon Emperor, this process was extremely difficult, just like the Dragon King to the Dragon Emperor. Kang Shinmu broke through this bottleneck in one fell swoop because he obtained the Divine Dragon Marrow. And now, his demon god's inheritance blood essence was constantly surging, constantly breaking through the bottleneck. Finally, after 3 days, Kang Shinmu's demon god's inheritance blood essence finally broke through to the Demon Emperor, reaching the 1st level of the Demon Emperor. This was a great breakthrough, which meant that the grade of his demon god's blood essence was closer to the grade of his divine dragon's blood essence. Moreover, Kang Shinmu had only devoured a small part of this supreme demon god's remains. He had only devoured one of its arms. Next was the other arm. The endless demon god's blood essence was devoured into Kang Shinmu's body, then enshrouded into the purest blood essence power, which was absorbed into the 16-winged heavenly demon god's blood essence inheritance. Even the ancestors of the demon god were shocked to see this devouring speed, not to mention what would happen if other cultivators knew about it. A supreme demon god's remains could bring too much improvement to Kang Shinmu. Half a month, which was 15 days, had passed. Kang Shinmu finally devoured all the supreme demon god's remains. At this moment, the myriad ghost fire demon god's inheritance remains were all transformed into the purest blood essence power, which was integrated into Kang Shinmu's body. Although this power was extremely vast, the further he went, the more difficult it was for Kang Shinmu to break through. In the first 3 days, he directly broke through one level of the demon god's inheritance blood essence, from the 9th level of the Demon King to the 1st level of the Demon Emperor. But in the next 12 days, he only broke through 3 levels, and finally barely reached the 4th level of the Demon Emperor. This had surpassed the level of Kang Shinmu's current Dragon Emperor's 3rd level of blood essence. But there was no doubt that Kang Shinmu could not defeat the power of his Dragon Emperor's inheritance blood essence by relying on the power of the 4th level of the Demon Emperor. Because he broke through too quickly, he did not have time to consolidate his power. It was already amazing to be able to exert 50% of the power of this realm. And Kang Shinmu could exert at least 90% of the power of the Dragon God clan. In comparison, the difference between the two sides was obvious. Of course, Kang Shinmu now had the strongest heaven-level Desolate God demonic weapon and the strongest Desolate God demonic skill to cultivate. In contrast, the level of his holy spiritual dragon weapon could not keep up. It was simply too weak in comparison. Therefore, in terms of Kang Shinmu's current strength, the Demon God clan's strength was still the strongest. Although his cultivation was much later than that of the Dragon God clan, the key was that the relevant cultivation resources that Kang Shinmu obtained were all top-notch, and they were all provided by Sui. If his cultivation was not fast, he might as well kill himself. However, the level of the Demon God clan's inheritance blood essence had also improved very quickly. Basically, he did not have much time to consolidate it, so he could not even exert 50% of his power now. Next, the Demon God clan's inheritance power needed to be nourished and consolidated for a long time. This was something that others could not help him with. However, in addition to having a storage space, the Instant Demon Ring also had another function, which was to help people consolidate and nourish the Demon God clan's inheritance power. Just like Kang Shinmu's Dragon Mark Blood Pendant, with the help of the Instant Demon Ring, the time needed for Kang Shinmu to consolidate these powers would definitely be reduced by at least half. Chapter 46-58. The inherited blood essence of the demon god race had reached the 4th level of the demon emperor realm. This was something that Kang Shinmu had not expected. This speed was too fast. If there were enough supreme-level skeletons for him to devour, then wouldn't he be heaven-defying? This speed of improvement was simply unheard of. However, Kang Shinmu did not feel too emotional. This was because he had always been like this, constantly climbing higher with a cultivation speed that crushed cultivators of the same level. Although he had improved a lot, it wasn't a big improvement in terms of his combat power. On one hand, the power of his inherited demon god race bloodline had not been consolidated. On the other hand, he could not use the power of the demon god race inheritance most of the time. He mainly had to rely on the strength of the divine dragon inheritance. Moreover, after arriving at the 5 Extremes Dark Ice Holy Land, it was even more impossible for Kang Shinmu to display the strength of the demon god race and the power of the void. That would undoubtedly be courting death. However, if he arrived at the chaotic battlefield, when no one was watching over him, Kang Shinmu would be like a fish in water. It could be said that Kang Shinmu's current hibernation was to prepare for the chaotic battlefield. The consciousness of the demon god ancestor had also said that there were many supreme relics in the chaotic battlefield. There were even many relics of true dragons and true demons that were waiting to be excavated by countless people. The reason that place was called the chaotic battlefield was that it was a great world that had only been discovered in the last few hundred years. Too many powerful existences had fallen in that great world. Even in the chaotic battlefield, supreme-level skeletons and remains could be seen everywhere. It was unknown what kind of tragic war had taken place in the chaotic battlefield. In that war, supreme-level existences were almost like small soldiers. Apart from supreme-level skeletons and remains, there were no more existences of lower levels. They had been reduced to ashes. The skeletons of super-divine dragons and super-demon gods did not seem to be left behind after death. No one knew whether this was because there were no existences below the supreme level participating in the chaotic battlefield or because the skeletons of those below the supreme level had been reduced to ashes. Logically speaking, even if they had been reduced to ashes in the war, it should not have been so thorough that not a single one could be found. Therefore, many people guessed that in that tragic battle back then, the weakest ones who participated were all supreme beings. Within the ruins of the chaos battlefield, there were many corpses of various races. As such, the various races were fighting over them, causing the entire small world to be in chaos. That's right, in comparison, the chaos battlefield was just a small world. Rather than saying that war had destroyed that small world, it was more accurate to say that some kind of disaster had appeared in that small world, causing all the supreme experts to perish. Kang Shinmu shook his head and didn't think too much about it. During this time, his strength in the Dragon God clan had not improved much, so he still had some regrets. Of course, it was already amazing that he could cultivate multiple powers of inheritance. If he could cultivate 2 different inheritances at the same time, it would be too heaven-defying. Others wouldn't even need to cultivate, because no matter how hard they cultivated, they wouldn't be a match for Kang Shinmu. In this half a month, Kang Shinmu had devoured the remains of the Supreme Myriad Calamity Ghost Fire Demon God's inheritor. This allowed him to progress rapidly in terms of the demon god race's bloodline. The 4th level of the Demon Emperor was already close to the level of transformation. The demon god ancestor's consciousness said that if Kang Shinmu went to see Sui with this cultivation speed, he would definitely be accepted by the demon god race's royal family. If they didn't accept him, it would prove that this generation of demon god race's royal family was a fool. Of course, the demon god ancestor's consciousness hadn't seen this generation of demon god race's royal family. He had just awakened not long ago, otherwise, he wouldn't be so talkative and look for Kang Shinmu to chat all day. After Kang Shinmu devoured all the supreme remains, he left the underground magma space. The supreme remains had been placed in the magma space for half a month. The underground magma space was even filled with the aura of the fire demon god. If ordinary people accidentally fell in, they would probably be infected by the fire poison and die. Fortunately, that place was located in the absolute depths. It was impossible for ordinary people to reach it. Previously, Kang Xinmu and Su Yi had accidentally fallen in, so no one could find them. After everything was settled, Kang Xinmu activated the instant magic ring and returned to the place where Jiang Liuxue and the other two girls were arranged. This place was called the Sky Patrol Dragon Country. The capital city was called the Sky Patrol City. In the Sky Patrol City, there were at least 1 million dragon warriors. It was the gathering place of the dragon warriors of the entire Sky Patrol Dragon Country. It must be known that the Flame Dragon Emperor dynasty's Flame Dragon City only had a little more than 100,000 elite dragon warriors. The overall strength of the Sky Patrol Dragon Country was several times stronger than that of the Flame Dragon Emperor dynasty. Moreover, the Sky Patrol Dragon Emperor was also an extremely strong dragon emperor. He had also made illustrious achievements in the previous battlefield of the Void Crack. Now, the Sky Patrol Dragon Emperor was like the Dragon Emperor of Great Liang. He was also considered one of the leaders of the Dragon Emperor country's Dragon Emperor group. Of course, the Sky Patrol Dragon Emperor was not in the Sky Patrol Dragon Country, but in the Dragon Martial Fortress. Kang Xinmu arranged for Jiang Liuxue and the other two girls to stay in the Sky Patrol City. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any problems. For half a month, even if they wanted to stroll around the city, there wouldn't be any danger. The security of this place was very good. The Sky Patrol City Guard was the personal guard team of the Sky Patrol Dragon Emperor. Under the control of the Sky Patrol City Guard, the security of the Sky Patrol City had always been excellent. Kang Xinmu had heard of these things before, so he felt at ease leaving the three girls in the Sky Patrol City. However, when he returned to the Sky Patrol City, he found that the three girls were not in the inn, but had gone out to stroll. Kang Xinmu could only wait in the inn. As he waited, the three girls didn't come. Instead, he waited for bad news. "Sir, your 3 female companions have offended the Sky Patrol and have been arrested. Please cooperate. Shall we head there?" The innkeeper suddenly ran over to inform Kang Xinmu and showed him the arrest warrant. Jiang Xinmu's brows furrowed as soon as he saw it. Jiang Liuxue and the other two girls had offended the Sky Patrol? That shouldn't be possible, right? Could it be? Kang Xinmu thought of a possibility and his eyes narrowed. He got up and rushed to the city lord residence. In the Sky Patrol City, no one was allowed to transform into a dragon and fly. Even the strongest dragon emperor had to abide by this rule. Kang Xinmu knew that Jiang Liuxue and the other two girls wouldn't be in any danger, so he wasn't particularly anxious. However, he had already thought of a possibility. There would probably be a fierce battle. Without a doubt, Jiang Liuxue had been wanted by Donghuang Yangwu College, which was why the Sky Patrol had arrested them. Otherwise, why would they offend the Sky Patrol? Chapter 46-59. The innkeeper was just a messenger. In this inn, it was impossible for the innkeeper to go against the will of the Sky Patrol army. Therefore, Kang Xinmu could not blame the innkeeper. After receiving the news from the innkeeper, Kang Xinmu quickly flew towards the Sky Patrol Army's Castellan mansion. Not long after, he passed through the crowd and arrived at the entrance of the Castellan mansion. The two guards looked at the crowd in boredom, but naturally, no one would enter the Castellan mansion. It was not only the Castellan mansion, but also the residence of Tian Sun Dragon Emperor. Therefore, it was very important. Apart from some influential people or people who had something to report, few people would come to the Castellan mansion. However, when the two guards saw Kang Xinmu, their eyes lit up. "It's Kang Xinmu. Quickly report to the housekeeper." Soon, Kang Xinmu arrived at the entrance. The two guards looked down at Kang Xinmu and took a defensive posture. At the same time, they released the news to the Castellan mansion. Soon, a series of footsteps came from the Castellan mansion. A middle-aged housekeeper in a grey robe came out. He looked swift and decisive and had a very solemn expression. He quickly saw Kang Xinmu and a stern look appeared on his face. "You are Kang Xinmu, right? Please come with me. There is a distinguished guest who wants to see you." Distinguished guest? Kang Xinmu nodded lightly and followed the other party into the city. The Lord of Sky Patrol City, Tian Sun Dragon Emperor, was very strong and had reached the level of Great Liang's Dragon Emperor. In terms of combat power, Kang Xinmu might not be his match. However, the Sky Patrol City's Dragon Martial Array formation was about the same strength as the Yen Dragon Emperor Dynasty's Flame Dragon City Array formation. It couldn't do anything to Kang Xinmu. The Tian Sun Dragon Emperor probably wouldn't personally come to handle this matter. Even if the Tian Sun Dragon Emperor was really inside and handling this matter, Kang Xinmu wouldn't be helpless. After all, this was the Dragon Martial Continent. If he really encountered danger, he could activate Emperor Shi's seal and summon the experts from Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy to descend. That was why Kang Xinmu could come to the City Lord's mansion without worrying about any ambush. Right now, he was only worried about Jiang Liuxue and the other two. What price did the other party want him to pay in exchange for the three women? Presumably, the conditions would not be too low. Of course, he would only know after seeing it. Kang Xinmu followed the grey-robed middle-aged housekeeper into the City Lord's mansion. After entering the main hall, he saw a familiar figure. Wasn't that person Bian Feng, the Dragon Emperor's mentor from Donghuang Yangwu College? Chou Jingyun had already been killed by him and the successor of the Limitless Bandit's demon god, Lin Xiaotian. Bian Feng, who was even stronger than Chou Jingyun in terms of battle prowess, had personally come to the Sky Patrol Dragon Country to handle Kang Xinmu's matter. However, it made sense. The three Dragon Emperor mentors from Donghuang Yangwu College had disappeared, and the Supreme Relic was filled with fire-poisoned spiritual qi. Bian Feng couldn't find anything, so he could only search the surrounding area. Sure enough, he found Jiang Liuxue and the other two girls. Mentor Bian. When Jiang Xinwu saw the other party, he greeted him faintly. Of course, he didn't have a good impression of Bian Feng. However, the three women were in the other party's hands, so he couldn't just start a fight. He had come to negotiate, not to fight. Kang Xinmu. When Bian Feng saw Kang Xinmu again, his expression was very calm. After a pause, he asked, "Have you seen Mentor Chou Jingyun?" "No." Kang Xinmu shook his head bluntly. It was true that Chou Jingyun wanted to kill him, but he couldn't say that he had killed Mentor Chou Jingyun. After all, Chou Jingyun was the Dragon Emperor's mentor, whose status was higher than his. Bian Feng sneered when he saw Kang Xinmu shake his head. This kid was really good at pretending. "I've searched the area near the Supreme Relic in the 10,000-year wood forest." Bian Feng continued, "I sensed many familiar auras. The auras of the two Dragon Emperor mentors from Donghuang Yangwu College and Mentor Chou Jingyun have all appeared there. However, I actually found something else." "Kang Xinmu, guess what I found?" "There's your aura, and there's also the aura of the demon god race." "Kid, don't tell me you joined forces with the demon god race to kill the mentors from Donghuang Yangwu College?" Bian Feng's words seemed to be just a guess, but there was a ruthless look in his eyes. Obviously, even if the truth wasn't like this, he had to think in this direction. This was the only way he could punish Kang Xinmu and make Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy unable to protect Kang Xinmu. Hearing this, Kang Xinmu sneered. "Mentor Bian, you must be joking. How could I, Kang Xinmu, join forces with the demon god race? As for Mentor Chou Jingyun and the other two mentors, they did come down to kill me, but unfortunately, they couldn't catch up to me. Why, did these 3 mentors meet with misfortune? Congratulations. Hearing Kang Xinmu's words, Bian Feng's face darkened. 3 mentors meeting with misfortune was definitely a big deal for Donghuang Yangwu College, but Kang Xinmu actually congratulated them. How dare this kid be so daring? Kang Xinmu. Bian Feng suddenly shouted and stood up. His aura was magnificent. Your 3 women are still in our hands. I advise you to be obedient. He really didn't think that Kang Xinmu had the ability to kill Mentor Chou Jingyun, so he didn't think that Kang Xinmu was very strong. He just thought that he had been ambushed by the demon god race. This was a big deal. Donghuang Yangwu College's dean, Zhou Xiaofan, had ordered a thorough investigation. Bian Feng was in charge of this matter, so he knew that he couldn't let Zhou Xiaofan down. My 3 women? Kang Xinmu shook his head and smiled. Mentor Bian, are you mistaken? The 3 of them are Donghuang Yangwu College's students. Donghuang Yangwu College actually locked up your own students and used them to threaten an outsider. Don't you think it's too much if word of this gets out? Donghuang Yangwu College actually did this. It's really shocking. Hearing Kang Xinmu's words, Bian Feng immediately sneered. Kang Xinmu, don't try to fool me, and don't try to distort the truth. When those 3 women left Donghuang Yangwu College with you, they were no longer students of Donghuang Yangwu College. Don't try to sow discord. Oh. Hearing this, Kang Xinmu instantly narrowed his eyes. I see. Mentor Bian, this is what you said. Seeing Kang Xinmu's expression, Bian Feng instinctively felt that something was wrong. His heart instantly skipped a beat. Kang Xinmu didn't give him a chance to refute and said directly, Mentor Bian, you said it yourself that they are no longer students of Donghuang Yangwu College. Since that's the case, they are students of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. As the Dragon Emperor's mentor of Donghuang Yangwu College, how dare you detain and lock up students of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy? Emperor Shi's seal. Chapter 4660. Bian Feng wanted to slap himself in the face. How could he say such a thing? If the 3 girls were not students of Donghuang Yangwu College, Emperor Shi Dragon Martial Academy would naturally accept them. The consequences of this matter would be severe, and he would not be able to bear it alone. He really wanted to slap himself in the face. He was too stupid to have been tricked by a junior like Kang Xinmu. He should not have tried to win with words. He should have just gone straight to the point and negotiated terms with Kang Xinmu. In the end, he was doomed. As Kang Xinmu activated Emperor Shi's seal of Emperor Shi Dragon Martial Academy, the news spread to Emperor Shi Dragon Martial Academy. Dean Yu Yaji would definitely know that Kang Xinmu was in danger. However, Yu Yaji had something to do and did not come. Hence, the person who appeared in front of Kang Xinmu through Emperor Shi's seal was the top Dragon Emperor instructor of Emperor Shi Dragon Martial Academy, Linghu Dai. Linghu Dai, dressed in red, appeared in front of Kang Xinmu. Instructor Linghu. Seeing this, Bian Feng's expression immediately changed. He lowered his posture and bowed to Linghu Dai. He was about to explain the situation and defend himself, but Kang Xinmu spoke first. Instructor Linghu, this instructor Bian Feng from Donghuang Yangwu College has detained our 3 students without permission. Please uphold justice for them. After Linghu Dai came over, she had a faint smile on her face. She first nodded at Kang Xinmu, then looked at Bian Feng with a faint smile. Your Donghuang Yangwu College is really impressive. You even dare to detain students of Emperor Shi Dragon Martial Academy? If this goes on, won't you collude with other races and attack our own people in the Dragon Martial continent? Her words could be said to be giving them a taste of their own medicine. No matter what, she would just have to put the blame on them. These words caused Bian Feng's expression to change greatly. He snorted coldly and said, "Instructor Linghu, since things have come to this, let's not beat around the bush. Those 3 girls are students of our Donghuang Yangwu College." "Tutor Bian, that's not what you said just now. You said that the 3 of them left Donghuang Yangwu College with me and that they no longer belonged to Donghuang Yangwu College," Kang Xinmu added. Bian Feng almost vomited blood. That was what he said, but how could he know that it was a trap? Now, he could be said to be in a terrible situation. If the 3 girls were students of Donghuang Yangwu College, then how could he capture the students of Donghuang Yangwu College? The other students of Donghuang Yangwu College would be bitterly disappointed. However, if the 3 girls were not, then it would be considered as bullying and targeting Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. This was not a small matter. One should know that Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy belonged to the Emperor Shi Divine Dragon, and the Emperor Shi Divine Dragon was comparable to the Dragon of Calamity in terms of strength and prestige. What would the Supreme Divine Dragons think if they made such a ruckus? Even Zhuo Xiaofan could not bear this responsibility. Therefore, he could only release them now. Moreover, he could not do anything to Kang Xinmu. "So, Tutor Bian Feng, do you plan to release them or start a war with our Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy?" Linghu Dai straightforwardly gave him an ultimatum. Release them or start a war. Bian Feng's body trembled. Wasn't it too forceful to start a war? Linghu Dai was either releasing them or starting a war. She did not give him any room to choose. It was naturally impossible to start a war, but release them? He had finally captured them to threaten Kang Xinmu. How did it end up like this? If he messed up this matter, wouldn't he be scolded to death by Zhuo Xiaofan? He did not know what to do at that moment. He said in a deep voice, "Please wait for a moment, Tutor Linghu. I'll ask for instructions. I'll give you 3 breaths. Release them or start a war." Linghu Dai did not listen to his nonsense. She repeated herself again, then stared into his eyes and began to count down. This situation scared Bian Feng out of his wits. He had reason to believe that Linghu Dai was already prepared to start a war with Donghuang Yangwu College. Once the war started, Bian Feng would definitely not be able to bear the consequences. He immediately said, "Tutor Linghu, calm down, calm down. I'll ask for instructions and get back to you immediately." 3, 2, Linghu Dai began to count down. Bian Feng could only grit his teeth and say, "Release them." He had no other choice. Once Linghu Dai really gave the order to start a war, the battle between the 2 Dragon Martial Academies would definitely be made known to the Supreme Divine Dragon powerhouses. This matter would then be exposed. Moreover, Jiang Shenwu's identity was rather special now. The higher-ups had already instructed Bian Feng to kill him secretly, or to control him and use poison and other schemes. This time, they wanted to force Kang Xinmu to come over and make Kang Xinmu take poison. It was not to kill Kang Xinmu, but to make him obedient and become a pawn of Donghuang Yangwu College. He did not expect to mess up this matter. Bian Feng felt like crying. Under his orders, the housekeeper of the Sky Patrol City's City Lord residence was shocked. He then turned around and sent someone to bring the 3 ladies over to release them. The housekeeper did not expect this at all. He had thought that Kang Xinmu would definitely die if he came. Yet, in just 2 short sentences, Kang Xinmu had called the chief tutor of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy over and forced Bian Feng to release them. This was simply too terrifying. This Kang Xinmu was rumored to be a hothead. How could he be so eloquent and intelligent? Logically speaking, this kid should have been completely suppressed by them. The middle-aged housekeeper did not know how he had ended up in this situation. Regardless, he could only listen to Bian Feng. After all, it was not his fault if this matter was messed up. It was Bian Feng's responsibility. It had nothing to do with him. Of course, the middle-aged housekeeper was helpless when it came to the conflict between the 4 dragon martial academies. He did not want to get involved either. Now that the matter was settled, he just wanted to send these troublemakers away. Therefore, he did not hesitate at all and left. After a while, he came out from the backyard with 3 young ladies. They were Jiang Liuxue, Shi Yueying, and Shi Yutong. They had been placed under house arrest and they were brought to the city lord residence. They had always been a little afraid and did not know what would happen. Now that they were brought out and saw Kong Xinmu and Ling Hu Dai, they immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Of course, they knew Kong Xinmu, but they did not know Ling Hu Dai, However, as long as Kong Xinmu was around, they could rest assured. From a long time ago, Kong Xinmu was already an omnipotent hero in their hearts. Chapter 46-61. Kong Xinmu and Ling Hu Dai brought the 3 girls out of the Sky Patrol City Lord residence. I've heard about what happened at Donghuang Yangwu College. You did well. Ling Hu Dai said with a smile as she walked. I've embarrassed myself in front of you, teacher. Kong Xinmu was still a little embarrassed. After all, he had caused trouble in someone else's territory. Although he had returned successfully, he had deepened the conflict between the 2 colleges. You are recruiting geniuses for our Emperor Shi Dragon Martial College. What's there to be embarrassed about? Ling Hu Dai said with a smile. She sized up the 3 girls and said, to be honest, it's more convenient for girls to stay at our Emperor Shi Dragon Martial College. She did not notice that Kong Xinmu was a little depressed when she said that. He was not a girl. However, he knew that Ling Hu Dai was not targeting him. She just did not see him as an ordinary student. Now that Kong Xinmu was about to head to the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land in the Dragon God's Great World, Kong Xinmu wanted to bring Shi Yueying along. Unfortunately, her cultivation was too low. Even if she went to the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land, it might be better for her to stay at Emperor Shi Dragon Martial College. Anyway, Xiao Yuhua and the others would help them improve at Emperor Shi Dragon Martial College. Currently, the 3 girls could not head to the Longwu Fortress. However, at Emperor Shi Dragon Martial College, with the help of Xiao Yuhua and the others, their cultivation would definitely improve by leaps and bounds. At the very least, they would not lack cultivation resources. Even if Kong Xinmu did not say it, Xiao Yuhua and the others would not treat the 3 girls badly. Now, let's return to the college and make some arrangements. By the way, Kong Xinmu, are you going to return to Xiao Bai's hometown with her? Ling Hu Dai suddenly said. Yes. Kong Xinmu nodded. Yes, try your best to settle everything. Otherwise, if anything happens later, you guys won't be able to help. Ling Hu Dai said with a smile, remember, after you go to the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land, cultivate well. The 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land has very rich dragon mark energy. Although the Dragon God's Great World is still at war, the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land is still a holy land in the rear. Generally speaking, it is safer. Yes. Kong Xinmu nodded, indicating that he understood. Then, everyone returned to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. From Donghuang Yangwu College to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy, both academies were extremely majestic. However, the majestic details were different. This made Jiang Liuxue and the other 2 girls a little emotional. They didn't expect that they would actually follow Kong Xinmu to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. To be honest, when Kong Xinmu appeared in front of them, they really didn't think that Kong Xinmu would have such strength. He could actually beat the top student of Donghuang Yangwu College in the Tianshu district, Lord Long. Moreover, Lord Long didn't seem to be able to resist at all in front of Kong Xinmu. Also, Qin Xiaoya and Zhu Wudi from the Tianshu district seemed to be on good terms with Kang Xinmu. Now, Kang Xinmu's status was already something that the three girls couldn't catch up with. This speed of improvement was simply too fast. At that time, they were stronger than Kang Xinmu, but now Kang Xinmu had completely left them behind. Too amazing. The three girls came to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. For the time being, they were only students in the Yaoguang district. There was still less than half a year before the next academy competition. After that, it would be the academy exchange. However, all of this seemed to have little to do with Kang Xinmu. After going to the Holy Lands of Five Extremes Dark Ice, Kang Xinmu didn't know how long he would stay there. At the very least, it would be about a year. After all, after the other Dragon Emperor students reached the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor, they also had to go to the Dragon God's macro world to stay for about a year. Kang Xinmu brought the three girls back to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. Then, he called Xiao Yuhua and the others over to get to know them. As for Kang Xinmu bringing back three beauties at once, Liang Xiao felt that it was too good. Originally, he and Kang Xinmu were the two male students in the team. Now that there were three beauties joining them, it was simply too good. However, what made Liang Xiao puzzled was that these three girls were staunch admirers of Kang Xinmu. It was almost impossible for him to chase after these three girls. Liang Xiao had always wanted a female companion, but in the original team, there was no need to mention Xiao Yuhua. She was focused on cultivation and had no interest in the matters between men and women. Xiao Bai was also cold to him. Although she didn't really hate him, she definitely didn't like him. There was no need to mention Ran Ran. She was a staunch admirer of Kang Xinmu. Now, there were three more beauties in the team. However, it was a pity that they were three admirers of Kang Xinmu. Liang Xiao really wanted to cry. However, there were more female students in the team. Their daily activities were more pleasing to the eyes. Even if they weren't his women, at least he could feast his eyes. Of course, in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy, there were more female students. With Liang Xiao's current strength, if he went to other teams, he would definitely be able to find girls who liked him very quickly. However, how could he leave this team just to look for women? Everything he had now was mostly because of Kang Xinmu. After fighting together for such a long time, they had formed a friendship of life and death. It was impossible for him to forget them. Therefore, it was impossible for him to leave this team. Even if there were three burdens, he would definitely bring them along. There was absolutely no problem with Liang Xiao's character. This was also the reason why Kang Xinmu had asked him to form a team back then. Xiao Bai, let's make some preparations and go back. Kang Xinmu said to Xiao Bai. When Xiao Bai heard this, she quietly looked at Kang Xinmu for 3 breaths of time. Then, she said, I don't need to prepare anymore. I've already been preparing for half a month. When she said this, Kang Xinmu immediately smiled bitterly. Yes, he actually spent half a month devouring the power of the supreme skeletal remains to settle the matter of the 3 women. During this period of time, Xiaobai had already prepared everything that needed to be prepared. What more did he need to do? In fact, they might even be a little bored. However, this was, after all, the last period of time before Xiaobai left. Whether it was Xiaobai or Xiao Yuhua, they both cherished this time. After this, the two of them would probably not be able to see each other for a long time. Ran Ran was also very upset. She wanted to leave with Kang Xinmu, but the current situation required her to bring Xiao Bai away first. After all, it was still not convenient for Xiao Bai to appear on the battlefield of the 9 major races. Xiao Bai's hometown was Luohua Dragon Nation. Luohua Dragon Nation was about 10 Dragon Emperor kingdoms away from Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. It was still relatively far. Now, Xiao Bai's mother should be doing well in Luohua Dragon Nation. After all, Xiaobai was now one of the top geniuses in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. With this identity, the people of Luohua Dragon Nation would not dare to harm her mother. In fact, they would even take good care of her. Chapter 4662. Luohua Dragon Country was located 6,000 miles south of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. This distance was not too close, but it was not too far for dragon martial artists either. The distance was about half the distance from Dragon Emperor Yan to Donghuang Yangwu College. Xiao Bai had spent about half a year to travel from Luohua Dragon Country to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. However, they did not need half a year to go back now. They only needed to use Emperor Shi's formation. This kind of ancient space-time formation was very convenient, but ordinary people could not afford it. So far, the Dragon Emperor country that had built ancient space-time formations basically did not exist. However, some ancient space-time formations were located in the Demon Forest and were controlled by the demon beasts. Of course, some powerful dragon emperors, such as the Great Liang Dragon Emperor, were also considering building an ancient space-time formation in the capital city of the Great Liang Dragon Country. This would require him to pay a huge price, because he couldn't build it by himself. It would only be possible if he had the help of a super dragon god. Therefore, the Dragon Emperor of Great Liang was now close to the deans of the 4 Dragon Martial Academies. He wanted to pay some benefits to ask them to help build the ancient space-time formation, which was quite beneficial to the development of the Dragon Nation of Great Liang. Of course, super dragon martial artists could only build ancient space-time formations with one-way teleportation, but this was already powerful enough. The ancient space-time formations with two-way teleportation in the 4 Dragon Martial Academies were built with the help of supreme powerhouses. As the Chief Dragon Emperor instructor, Linghu Dai, Er's current comprehension of the void energy was quite high. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to cultivate the sunset glow flash to the extreme saint realm. However, with her current level, she was still unable to construct an ancient space-time formation. If it were not for the high requirements and the difficulty of building them, teleportation formations would have been spread all over the Dragon Martial continent. As for the ancient space-time formations used by demon beasts, they were really ancient products. It was impossible to find out who built them, but it was only a one-way teleportation formation. Kang Xinmu and Xiao Bai immediately bid farewell to Xiao Yuhua and the others and left Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. From Emperor Shi's formation, they arrived at the capital of Luohua Dragon Country in the blink of an eye. The capital of the Luohua Dragon Country was Luohua City. Luohua City had a circumference of 100 miles, and the city lord's mansion took up a fifth of the area. That was expanded by Dragon Emperor Wu Nian. When Xiao Bai's father was still alive, the city lord's mansion didn't take up so much space. Little White was the illegitimate daughter of Luohua Dragon Country's first-generation Dragon Emperor. Dragon Emperor Wu Nian was sent by Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy to govern the entire Luohua Dragon Country after her father passed away. According to tradition, Dragon Emperor Wu, father, Martial Dragon Martial Country, Dragon Hua Nation, Country, Wu, and Dragon Wu, Shi. Dragon Emperor would change to Dragon Wu, Luo Dragon Country. Emperor Wu Dragon Country, name. Shi, Wu, Dragon Emperor's Luo Dragon Emperor, Dragon Wu. Chen, father, by Tian Kingdom, clan, by, of Shi of Wu's Luo clan E. Emperor. It had to be said that Xiao Bai's father was really distinguished and elegant. It was a pity that his illegitimate children were more talented. None of his children had inherited blood at the level of Dragon Emperor. None of them had the talent to enter the Dragon Martial Academy. Wu, Dragon Emperor Wu, had never entered the Dragon Martial Academy. He had broken through to become a Dragon Emperor through his own hard work. However, his potential had been exhausted after he became a Dragon Emperor. Kong Xinmu brought Xiaobai to Luohua Dragon Country's Luohua city. Xiaobai, do you think Dragon Country will change its name if you inherit the throne? Kong Xinmu suddenly thought of a question and found it funny. Or should I say, since you've reached the level of Dragon Emperor's inherited blood, what should you be called? The Dragon Emperor powerhouses in the world all had titles. Kong Xinmu's name was Kong Xinmu, so his title was more like Divine Martial Dragon Emperor. But until now, Kong Xinmu did not know Xiaobai's name. Naturally, he did not know what title she would receive. Xiaobai Dragon Emperor. That was a little too funny. Of course, if Xiaobai did not return to the Dragon Martial Continent and become the Dragon Emperor of the Dragon Emperor country, she did not need to think about titles. Kong Xinmu asked this question because he was curious. He wanted to know her real name. After all, they were going to the Dragon God's world together, but he did not even know Xiaobai's real name. Thinking about it, he felt a little strange. When Xiaobai heard Kong Xinmu's question, she immediately covered her mouth and smiled. Kong Xinmu, my name is Xiaobai Qi. My father's name is Qi Luohua, and his title is Dragon Emperor Luohua. I am an illegitimate daughter, so my name is Xiaobai. Kong Xinmu really did not expect that Xiaobai's real name was Xiaobai Qi. If she became Dragon Emperor, would she really be Xiaobai Dragon Emperor? Of course, this kind of title seemed a little stupid. If she really needed a title, Xiaobai would definitely choose another one. Qi Xiaobai, good name. Kong Xinmu smiled and nodded. This Qi Luohua was really a godly person. He actually had so many illegitimate children. The current thoughtless Dragon Emperor should be called Qi Wunyan. Qi Wunyan and Qi Xiaobai should be two of Qi Luohua's many illegitimate children. They were the most talented, so they were known by everyone. In Luohua City, Xiaobai was even called Little Princess. Although she was an illegitimate daughter, she was too talented. She had already entered the Dragon Martial Academy, so who dared to disrespect her? Moreover, her illegitimate son, thoughtless Dragon Emperor, had already ruled this country. As for Luohua Dragon Emperor's children, no one knew how they were doing now. This time, Kong Xinmu and Xiaobai came back to visit her mother. They did not alarm anyone. Xiaobai brought Kong Xinmu directly to the city lord's mansion in Luohua City. The guards of the city lord's mansion naturally recognized Xiaobai. Every year, she would come back to visit her mother. However, this year, she actually brought a young man back, which surprised the guards. Princess Xiaobai had never brought a man back before. This time, she actually brought a man. Facing the strange gazes of the city lord's mansion's guards, Kong Xinmu also felt a little strange. Why were they looking at him? Was he very handsome? Could he even attract men? Kong Xinmu shook his head and did not think too much about it. He followed Xiaobai to the backyard of the city lord's mansion. The entire city lord's mansion was like a palace now. However, with Kong Xinmu and Xiaobai's strength, their speed was very fast. They did not waste any time and directly ran to the courtyard where her mother lived. It was a very large courtyard, and there were many servants taking care of her mother. This treatment made Kong Xinmu's heart stir. Should he let his mother go to Flame Dragon City to enjoy life? Unfortunately, Kong Xinmu knew that his mother would not be willing to leave the Jiang tribal clan. Xiaobai's mother was the previous Dragon Emperor's woman, so it was normal for her to live in the palace. As for Kong Xinmu's mother, she did not have such a high status. She was just a member of the Jiang tribal clan, the wife of the previous Jiang tribal chief. Chapter 46-63. The two of them quickly made their way to the courtyard where Xiaobai's mother lived. They walked at a brisk pace, creating a gust of wind. Although he did not transform into a dragon, in this human form, he could still display 30% of his strength. In fact, Kang Xinmu could display even more strength. Of course, he suppressed it now and maintained the same speed as Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai used some kind of dragon movement martial technique. Although she used it in her human form, it still increased her speed by several times. As for Kang Xinmu, he used nimble stance. The divine dragon tyrant body art burst forth, allowing his speed to easily keep up with Xiao Bai. The two of them soon arrived at an elegant courtyard. This courtyard was where her mother lived. The location of this elegant courtyard was not considered remote, but the environment was very quiet and beautiful. There were also many servants serving inside. Xiao Bai's mother was also a dragon warrior, but her cultivation was not high. According to Xiao Bai, she was only at the heavenly dragon realm. When she met her father, Luohua Dragon Emperor, her mother was already at the heavenly dragon realm. At that time, Luohua Dragon Emperor was only a young man. He was slightly talented, so he got together with her. Unfortunately, she was not Luohua Dragon Emperor's only woman. After Luohua Dragon Emperor stepped into the Dragon Emperor realm, he chose another woman as his wife. Therefore, Xiao Bai could only be an illegitimate daughter. Kang Xinmu and Xiao Bai came to the courtyard and heard some movement from afar. This movement made Kang Xinmu and Xiao Bai frown. "Let's hide first." Jiang Shenwu held onto Whitey with one hand and then used the concealment ability that the ink centipede beast gained after fusing with it. It was now evening, and the sun was setting in the west. Kang Xinmu and his companion walked through the trees like ghosts. The nightmare ink beast's camouflage ability caused all the light around them to be reflected, making them almost invisible to others. At least in this Luohua dragon country, no one would be able to discover him, not even the thoughtless Dragon Emperor. One had to know that thoughtless Dragon Emperor was only at the third level of Dragon Emperor, which was similar to Kang Xinmu and Xiao Bai. However, in terms of true strength, Kang Xinmu could definitely crush thoughtless Dragon Emperor. After all, Kang Xinmu had even killed the 6th level of the Dragon Emperor, the Dragon Emperor mentor. Other than Tian Sun Dragon Emperor, Great Liang Dragon Emperor, and a few other Dragon Emperor leaders, Kang Xinmu was not afraid of these secular Dragon Emperors. Of course, it was impossible for Jiang Shenwu to come here to flaunt his prowess. He had his own firm goal. He needed more power to rescue his father. The dragon's sealing abyss contained an incomparable secret that even the demon god ancestor's consciousness was not completely clear about. Therefore, Kang Xinmu had to dig out the secret. Outside the courtyard, Kang Xinmu and Xiao Bai hid and listened to the movements in the courtyard. Among them, there were two servants talking. Their words were not very respectful to Xiao Bai's mother, Yu Shuhua. There were even some verbal attacks, mocking Yu Shuhua. "This old woman is getting more and more disrespectful to our prince just because her daughter is in the Dragon Martial Academy. That's right. No matter what, she is just a heavenly dragon. Compared to the prince, her status is too low. The prince invited her to participate in the tea party, but she dared not go. She deserves retribution." The chatter was not loud, but how could it escape Kang Xinmu and Xiao Bai's ears? "I feel that my mother is injured." The hidden Xiao Bai's expression was a little ugly. "What's going on?" Kang Xinmu frowned. "They are talking about the prince, and their words are too disrespectful to your mother." "Have they always been like this?" He had thought that Xiao Bai's mother might be living a good life, but now it seemed that the relationship between the royal family in Luohua City was very complicated. "No." Xiao Bai was very depressed. "In the past, every time I came back, it was during the new year. Everyone welcomed me and treated my mother very well. My mother never said anything bad about them." The two did not think too much about it. They continued to hide and went into the courtyard. They did not show themselves for the time being. They planned to find out more about the situation first. In the past, every time Xiao Bai came back, it was during the new year. The date was fixed, so it was very likely that someone was putting on a show for her. But this time, because she was going to the dragon god's great world, she unexpectedly came back. She seemed to have discovered something extraordinary. Her mother seemed to be constantly being bullied. That prince should be the direct descendant of the previous Luohua dragon emperor. He actually invited Xiao Bai's mother to participate in some tea party. This was undoubtedly too much. After all, Xiao Bai's mother was older than that prince. She was his elder. They needed to know what had happened now. Kang Xinmu and Xiao Bai entered the courtyard without being discovered by anyone. Even without the black concealing dragon stone, the centipede ink beast's concealment ability was really impressive. Even without the black concealing dragon stone, the centipede ink beast's concealment ability alone could fool the senses of many people. Even if the thoughtless dragon emperor came, he would not be able to sense the presence of Kang Xinmu and the others. In the courtyard, the two of them saw the two women who were talking. Xiao Bai recognized the two women as her mother's maids. Now they were actually speaking ill of her mother. As they walked, they chatted in private. Chapter 46-64. The situation was clear. While Xiao Bai was not around, Prince Qi Nan of Luohua Dragon Country had teamed up with other members of the royal family, and even the servants, to bully Xiao Bai's mother. Xiao Bai's mother did not complain to Xiao Bai, probably because she felt that Xiao Bai could not win against them. But now, Xiao Bai was already at the 4th level of the rebirth realm, and her divine dragon blood had reached the 3rd level of the Dragon Emperor. Furthermore, she was just a step away from breaking through to the 4th level of the Dragon Emperor realm. In addition to her recent experience, her battle prowess had increased. She possessed many powerful dragon weapons and cultivated powerful dragon martial skills. She was not someone that the ordinary Dragon Emperor of the Dragon Emperor country could deal with. That Prince Qi Nan was not in Xiao Bai's eyes at all. That guy was in his 40s, and only had the divine dragon blood of the 8th level of the Dragon King. What was there to be afraid of? Even if the Dragon Emperor of Luohua Dragon Country, that thoughtless Dragon Emperor, came, Xiao Bai would not be afraid. Moreover, Kang Xinmu was with them. So this time, they had to settle the matter. The best way was to get rid of Prince Qi Nan. Of course, no matter what, Prince Qi Nan was Xiao Bai's half-brother. It would not be convenient to kill him directly. But who said they wanted Xiao Bai to act? Kang Xinmu and Xiao Bai could act separately and kill Prince Qi Nan without any problems. Of course, everything depended on Xiao Bai's choice. If she was willing to let Prince Qi Nan go, then she did not have to kill him. The most important thing was to see how Xiao Bai's mother was injured. If her injuries were serious, Xiao Bai would not be able to hold back her anger. The two of them concealed themselves and quickly walked toward the courtyard of the side hall. Soon, Xiao Bai brought Kang Xinmu to a room in the courtyard. "You go in, I won't go in," Kang Xinmu said. Xiao Bai's mother was injured and Kang Xinmu was a man, so it was not convenient for him to go in. Xiao Bai nodded and pushed the door open. "Who is it?" A woman's voice came from inside the room. She sounded quite young. "Mother, it's me," Xiao Bai said softly. "Xiao Bai, why are you back?" The woman was a little surprised and a little flustered. As for what happened next, Kang Xinmu did not probe further. Xiao Bai stayed with her mother for about an hour before she came out to find Kang Xinmu. "Kang Xinmu, my mother's injuries are not serious. However, Prince Qi Nan invited my mother to a tea party today. As an elder, how could my mother attend?" In the end, Prince Qi Nan flew into a rage and said that my mother did not understand etiquette. He even said that the explosion of the jade artifact was the will of the heavens, a punishment from the heavens for her lack of etiquette. But that jade artifact was clearly given to her by Prince Qi Nan. He had tampered with it long ago just for today. If it wasn't for the fact that my mother was a little further away when the jade artifact exploded, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to see my mother. Xiao Bai's voice gradually turned cold. It was obvious that Prince Qi Nan wanted to kill her mother. To Xiao Bai, this was absolutely unforgivable. In that case, let's go find Prince Qi Nan. Kang Xinmu narrowed his eyes. He put himself in Xiao Bai's shoes. This matter would definitely be very infuriating. After all, Xiao Bai and her mother had never provoked each other. Just because Prince Qi Nan was jealous of Xiao Bai's talent, he had repeatedly harmed Xiao Bai's mother. This was already at the end of the line. Unforgivable. He must be taught a lesson, or even killed. Of course, whether to kill or not depended on his attitude. Kang Xinmu had plenty of ways to deal with this kind of brat. The two of them did not care about anything else. They suddenly transformed into dragons and flew towards Prince Qi Nan's residence in the east. The imperial city of Luohua Dragon Country naturally did not allow anyone to transform into dragons. This was out of respect for the Dragon Emperor. But now, the ones transforming were two Dragon Emperors. Both of them had transformed into Dragon Emperor bodies that were thousands of feet long. Moreover, their auras were majestic, even more domineering than the Dragon Emperor and thoughtless Dragon Emperor of Luohua Dragon Country. Under such circumstances, who would dare stop Kang Xinmu and Xiao Bai? When the city guards saw the mystical dragons flying through the city, they instinctively wanted to stop them. However, they stopped before they could do so. Two Dragon Emperors. You guys are only sky dragons, at most holy dragons. Aren't you courting death by stopping them? After Kang Xinmu and Xiao Bai transformed into dragons, they flew from the west to the east of the imperial city and soon arrived above Prince Qi Nan's residence. Along the way, the entire Luohua city was in an uproar. Who would dare cause trouble in the capital of Luohua Dragon Country? Moreover, they seemed to be targeting Prince Qi Nan. They flew directly above Prince Qi Nan's residence. Many people were gloating over this. Prince Qi Nan had always been arrogant and domineering, so he had a bad reputation in the capital of Luohua Dragon Country. It was said that once Prince Qi Nan became a Dragon Emperor, he could even inherit the position of Dragon Emperor of Luohua Dragon Country. Meanwhile, thoughtless Dragon Emperor would leave Luohua Dragon Country. Therefore, recently, thoughtless Dragon Emperor rarely took care of things. Prince Qi Nan was basically the one in charge. Prince Qi Nan had gathered a large group of lackeys under him. They were bossy and domineering everywhere, causing the heavens and the people to resent him. Many people were angry, but they did not dare to speak out. There were even some merchant families who were preparing to relocate, planning to leave Luohua Dragon Country. If a Dragon Emperor like Prince Qi Nan became the emperor, then the entire Luohua Dragon Country would have no future. Vengeful, cruel, and vicious. These words were the true portrayal of Prince Qi Nan. Therefore, when they saw a powerful Dragon Emperor flying directly above Prince Qi Nan's residence to cause trouble, the citizens of Luohua City who saw this scene from afar all applauded and cheered. However, it was one thing for them to be happy. Whether Prince Qi Nan would be taught a lesson was another matter. Moreover, if Prince Qi Nan was really bullied by an unstoppable expert, he would definitely try every possible way to take revenge. If he couldn't take revenge on the expert who bullied him, then he would take revenge on the citizens of Luohua City. This was completely deranged. But now, as long as they saw Prince Qi Nan being bullied, it would be a good thing. It would be a great thing. At most, they would keep a low profile after the incident and not let Prince Qi Nan catch them. A group of people gathered in Prince Qi Nan's residence. No matter what, today's show was something they had to watch. Above Prince Qi Nan's residence, Kang Xinmu and Xiao Bai flew into the sky and looked down at the entire residence. At this time, a few dragon warriors immediately flew up into the sky. These dragon warriors were all dragon kings, powerful beings of Luohua dragon country. However, these older dragon kings were extremely nervous in front of Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai. Chapter 46-65. These dragon kings who came out of Prince Qi Nan's residence were all important figures in Luohua dragon country. Just like during the Yen Dragon Emperor's court, there were 12 Yen Dragon envoys as guards. These dragon kings were all important dragon kings of Luohua dragon country. All of them were high-ranking officials with high status and terrifying strength. However, that was only in Luohua dragon country. If they were in the 4 dragon martial academies, they would never be able to leave the Alcade district. It would be impossible for them to reach the Kaiyang district. For a dragon king's level of inherited blood essence, the increase in strength by 1 level was not obvious. These dragon kings did not put any effort into raising the divine dragon's blood essence because they knew they were not talented enough. Hence, after reaching dragon king level, they did not focus on raising the divine dragon's blood essence. In any case, before reaching dragon emperor level, everyone was the same. If you were dragon king level 8, I was dragon king level 6. There was no difference. If we fought, you might not be able to suppress me. Hence, these mediocre dragon kings did not even bother to raise their levels. The key was, how many cultivation resources would be needed to raise from Dragon King level 6 to Dragon King level 8? A huge amount. These cultivation resources could even nurture several descendants of Dragon King level. In comparison, they were naturally more willing to use these cultivation resources to nurture their descendants so that they could become their successors. These people had a completely different outlook from geniuses like Kong Xinmu. They were limited to Luohua dragon country. Even if they could see further, they could only see the dragon emperor level. They did not even dare to think about the level of the super dragon god. Hence, these people were more adept at managing power. Hence, they clustered around Prince Qi Nan, waiting for the day when Prince Qi Nan became dragon emperor. At that time, they would be able to get more cultivation resources. They didn't do it for themselves. They knew that the possibility of them improving was very small, but they did it for the sake of their descendants. They wanted to get more cultivation resources. If the family prospered, their descendants might produce a dragon emperor in the future. They would be able to bring honor to their ancestors and rule over a dragon emperor kingdom. Of course, once one reached the level of the dragon emperor, the realm of vision would be different. However, the Dragon King would definitely not be able to understand this. When Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai swaggered to the sky above Prince Qi Nan's residence, these Dragon Kings first appeared, wanting to protect Prince Qi Nan from this crisis. "May I know where you 2 seniors are from?" One of them, the old Dragon King, asked in a humble tone as he felt the immense pressure from confronting Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai. This could be said to be very submissive. Basically, this kind of situation rarely happened in their lives. It should be known that the Dragon Martial Academy was very lax with the management of the Dragon Emperor kingdoms. They did not have any strict requirements. Hence, the major Dragon Emperor kingdoms governed themselves. This meant that many of the holy dragon kings of the Dragon Emperor kingdoms had never seen anyone from the Dragon Martial Academy in their entire lives. To them, the Dragon Martial Academy was something very far away. Hence, Xiao Bai's status in the Luohua dragon country became somewhat aloof. However, this aloof status affected Prince Qi Nan. Prince Qi Nan wanted to take over the Luohua dragon country, but first there was the thoughtless dragon emperor, and now there was Xiao Bai. What if Xiao Bai wanted to come back and fight with him for the position of dragon emperor? He, Prince Qi Nan, would definitely not be able to win. What right did he have to fight with Xiao Bai? After all, Xiao Bai had the entire Emperor Shi Dragon Martial Academy behind her. Unfortunately, Prince Qi Nan's foresight only went so far. He did not know that a genius of the Dragon Martial Academy like Xiao Bai would not be interested in the secular Dragon Emperor Kingdom. Even if she were to become the Dean of the Dragon Martial Academy, it would still be acceptable. As for the Dragon Emperor of the Luohua Dragon Country, to Xiao Bai, he was at her fingertips. She had no interest in him at all. What she pursued was unparalleled cultivation and stronger combat power. She would never be tied down by the secular world. Prince Qi Nan could be said to have been limited by his foresight. That was why he did such a disrespectful thing to Xiao Bai's mother. Of course, this also had to do with his lack of discipline. If his father was here, perhaps he would not have developed to such a domineering extent. Unfortunately, his father died early. Now, the Luohua Dragon Country was managed by his half-brother, the Thoughtless Dragon Emperor. As for the Thoughtless Dragon Emperor, he basically did not manage much. He only helped, and the Luohua Dragon Country was in danger. Recently, he even went to the Void Crack battlefield and the battlefield of the 9 major races. He basically did not manage anything in the Luohua Dragon Country. As a result, the entire Luohua Dragon Country was basically managed by Prince Qi Nan and his group of lackeys, the Dragon King. How could this not cause problems? Therefore, now, these Dragon King's hearts were filled with anxiety. The current state of the Luohua Dragon Country could be said to be very strange. If the higher-ups investigated, they would all be in trouble. Therefore, when facing Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai, they were all very respectful and lowered their posture to the lowest. Of course, they could not tell that the Ice Attribute Dragon Emperor before them was the miracle genius of their Dragon Emperor Kingdom, Qi Xiao Bai. If they knew, they would probably know what they were here for. We are from the Emperor Shi Dragon Martial Academy. Kong Xinmu looked at the group of Dragon Kings and said calmly, "Is Prince Qi Nan here? Ask him to come out. I have something to ask him." After Xiao Bai transformed into a dragon, her aura was much stronger than before. Her improvement in the past half a year was extremely fast. Moreover, she did not transform into a dragon when she came back in the past. There was no need. She only came back to see her mother, stay for 2 days, and then leave. There was no need to fight, so why would she transform into a dragon? Therefore, in the entire Luohua city, no one could tell that the Ice Divine Dragon was actually Xiao Bai. When Kong Xinmu asked about Prince Qi Nan's whereabouts, the group of Dragon Kings looked at each other. However, they did not dare to hide anything and quickly said, "We will ask the prince to come out and greet the 2 seniors." They were still a little frightened because Prince Qi Nan had just said that he was a noble prince and would ascend to the throne of the Dragon Emperor in the future. Now that 2 Dragon Emperors had appeared, they wanted him to come out and greet them. Wasn't this too disrespectful? The Dragon Kings thought, with 2 Dragon Emperors appearing, even the Thoughtless Dragon Emperor would have to come out and greet them personally if he was in Luohua City. You, a prince, are not even a Dragon Emperor, yet you are so arrogant and domineering, putting on such airs? Of course, the Dragon Kings were also somewhat dissatisfied with Prince Qi Nan. In some areas, this prince had gone too far. Therefore, it was good to have someone beat him up. When Kong Xinmu raised the question, 2 Dragon Kings immediately flew back to the mansion, planning to call Prince Qi Nan out. However, Kong Xinmu suddenly said, "There is no need. We will go see him personally." Instead, he looked pleasantly surprised and respectful. This was mainly because when he faced Xiao Bai, he seemed to be extremely respectful and reverent. "Stop pretending. You want to kill my mother, do you or do you not?" Qi Xiao Bai didn't waste any time with him and asked straightforwardly. How can this be? How can this be? Little sister Xiao Bai, are you mistaken? How could this prince kill your mother? Normally, this prince treats madam as respectfully as my own mother. Prince Qi Nan immediately denied it. Shut up. Kang Xinmu couldn't be bothered to listen to his nonsense. He was in a hurry. What was the point of wasting words with this kind of scum? As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying pressure surged out. There wasn't even a single dragon emperor present. Kang Xinmu only relied on his aura to make everyone around him shiver. It was as if their bodies were bathed in a storm. The tyrannical aura was concentrated on Prince Qi Nan. He couldn't withstand it at all and knelt on the ground on the spot. The concubines following him, as well as the group of Dragon King existences beside him, were all frightened out of their wits by the aura. Their faces were filled with terror. This aura was too powerful. It was as if they were facing the thoughtless Dragon Emperor. No, it was even more terrifying than the thoughtless Dragon Emperor. They felt as if they were standing in the center of a storm. If Kang Xinmu wanted to kill them, none of them would be able to survive. Even the others felt this way, let alone Prince Qi Nan. Prince Qi Nan's entire being was crushed by the aura. He fell to the ground, almost suffocating under the pressure of the aura. A concubine with a delicate, fox-like face forcefully endured the pressure of Kang Xinmu's aura. She raised her head with difficulty and looked at Kang Xinmu. She gritted her teeth and said, "Who are you? How dare you treat the Prince of Luohua Dragon Country, the future Luohua Dragon Emperor, like this? You're courting death." This fox-like concubine was Prince Qi Nan's loyal woman. Everything she had was tied to Prince Qi Nan. She had even relied on Prince Qi Nan's identity to do many things. Once she lost Prince Qi Nan's backing, her fate would be extremely miserable. Even the surrounding group of Dragon Kings wouldn't let her off so easily. Who asked her to make a move on the Dragon King's family? Of course, she didn't really make a move. She only collected some groundless taxes and obtained some property from those families. However, this was enough to make the group of Dragon Kings hold a grudge against her. If Prince Qi Nan was here, she naturally wouldn't have to worry. However, if Prince Qi Nan wasn't here, she would become the target of public criticism. Prince Qi Nan is a dignified prince. Why would he want to harm a woman? Someone is definitely framing the prince. The other concubine looked delicate and weak. She wasn't enraged at this moment. Instead, she was filled with reason as she spoke to Kang Xinmu and Xiao Bai. "You really didn't?" Kang Xinmu asked indifferently. "I didn't." Prince Qi Nan immediately replied, scared witless. "All right then, I'll let you off." After Kang Xinmu finished speaking, he turned around and left with Xiao Bai. His speed was very fast, and they walked out of Prince Qi Nan's mansion in the blink of an eye. The surrounding suppressive aura instantly dissipated.